I wanna hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. Or as I felt about this movie, I wanna turn this off. I wanna turn this off.
My favorite part about
I
watching
can't wait
this
to
movie
not talk this episode.
was that it was like I was highly considering being like, hey Molly, can we actually record on Wednesday so we can watch on Tuesday? Because it was already 9:30 when we
It
turned
was
this
9:30
on.
when we started,
Because
yeah.
Adam still had to do a podcast episode.
There was a lot going on.
And so
we're moving. It's a lot.
yeah,
There's a lot happening.
We're not moving for 2 months, but we were fresh off. We were looking at apartments. We were like, I'm frazzled. But then Adam was like, no, I think it'll be fine because it's like you'll write your notes, and then I don't think this movie will like obviously like you can like have it on. You don't have to like fully focus on it. And I don't know, it was just so funny watching Adam watch this movie. It ended up being like me watching him experience the movie. That was the true entertainment.
These are all the wrong conditions in which to watch this movie, what you're describing to me.
Yeah, don't watch like I would say after 8:30, maybe 8. It's hard to turn on a movie that you should like pay attention to.
Here's the thing. This is all I'm gonna say to start with, and I just like this is just not a movie for me, and that's okay. And there are plenty of movies in the world that are for lots of different people, and I'm just one of the people that this movie is on multiple levels not for. It's not even like one specific thing. It's just like if there was a movie that they were like, what is a movie that Adam would never enjoy? It's this one. That's fine. I think there are like weird things. I was gonna say it's not a bad movie, but it's like, but there are like definitely choices or whatever happening, which is whatever. They're just all choices that I don't enjoy aesthetically.
We need to talk opening banter, so you have to like tell me about your apartment search or something.
So that didn't help too. It was the same day where Adam was like, I have been using the wrong number to budget for looking for apartments. We actually could be looking for apartments.
It doesn't matter.
That are more, basically. So he's
like,
more.
It's important for the story to know if you've been looking at too expensive apartments or too cheap of apartments. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, oh, we could have been looking at better ones.
Our apartment search is going well. And by well, we've not found anything yet, and we've gone on 4 tours. But we're still many, many weeks away.
But when this episode comes out
we will have moved.
We would have moved.
I think. No.
The heels.
We're about to move. We're about to move.
When is this coming out?
This is the middle of September.
Yeah, we'll both have moved when this comes out.
Where are you moving? Calcutta?
Calcutta first. No, I'm moving to San Diego. I might not be there yet by mid-September.
Are you really moving to San Diego?
Did we talk about this?
I never told you.
Have you asked us if this is okay?
I'm so sorry, dads. I didn't ask your permission.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Are your parents moving out there too?
No.
At some point?
Maybe.
Your brother,
your brother.
My brother and his family live there.
Yeah. Well, I do love San Diego.
You're gonna work at La Jolla?
Oh my God! Congratulations!
Cool.
Oh my God!
Manifesting.
La Jolla, more like La Moya Matiny. Working at La Jolla.
Yeah. Oh, that was a very clever pun. Yeah, that works really well.
La Moya is great.
La Moya.
La Moya.
Anyway, we'll have to figure out our filming schedule with a 2-hour time difference.
Oh yeah. Oh well, and then a year after when we move to Seoul, we'll have to figure that out too. But
that'll be complicated.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to get visas for our podcast. It's gonna be a lot of work.
Yeah. International waters.
Mm-hmm.
Also a great podcast, International Waters.
Is it?
We have to stop plugging much more popular podcasts on our podcast.
Yeah, Dave Holmes just really needs more listeners, you guys.
Has anyone heard of NPR? Have we all heard of this?
Have you heard a little one called all things considered. They consider all things.
I just saw this podcast called Serial. It's really good.
Have you heard?
2016. What a time.
Very much before that.
Podcasts were
Was
invented.
it before 2016?
Yeah, I think it's 2014. I listened to Serial when I still lived in Chicago.
Oh my God, you're right.
Wow.
Because Serial, in the first episode of our Disney podcast, I do a Serial bit.
Oh, that's right.
And that we started in 2015. So yeah. Wow. This week I have the arduous task of summarizing the plot of Across the Universe. RJ, can you time me?
Absolutely. Adam, this is your 1-minute summary of the movie Across the Universe, and your time starts now.
Across the Universe is about Jude, a young man from Liverpool who goes to New Jersey to meet his father for the first time. Upon arriving, he becomes friends with Max, a college student who is more interested in having a good time than being a good student. His sister is Lucy, and when Jude meets her, there is an immediate attraction. Max and Jude move to New York City and join the hippie lifestyle as it is the late 60s. They become friends with many, including Sadie, a rock singer, Jojo, a guitarist, and Prudence, a lesbian. Lucy comes to visit and is moved by the anti-war sentiment coming from Paco, another character in the film. She and Jude fall in love while Max is drafted to Vietnam. Lucy becomes involved in the anti-war movement while Jude doesn't know what he wants to do and just simply paints. Max is traumatized from the war and comes back. Lucy and Jude break up, but then kind of get back together in the end when everybody sings All You Need Is Love on a roof.
Wow, that was a minute.
You so purposefully really slowed down as well to start this summary. I knew you were confident in the amount that you had written because you were like,
Yeah.
We begin in the night.
It was a very RJ summary, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Except with confidence throughout, RJ.
Yes,
so you have to, it's really important.
The difference.
The difference, yeah.
The only things I would say I left out is Sadie and Jojo's plot.
Yeah.
Prudence entirely, basically.
From the movie.
And that's it, plot-wise. There are other
you kind of strung through at least the main plot.
Yeah, really the only thing about Sadie and Jojo to know is that Sadie gets famous, they try to get her to leave Jojo behind, and she does it first, and then eventually they get back together and imply we're gonna go be a band together.
Yeah.
Molly, what is your relationship to Across the Universe?
I first watched this movie in high school, which I think is the only way for anyone to ever watch this movie.
Yeah,
so
that checks out.
That checks out, absolutely.
I watched it with a big group of friends. I liked it. I continue to like it,
theaters?
Which I know. No, just in my friend's attic. That was Sarah's attic was a cool place to hang out.
Yes, Sarah's attic.
Yes, Sarah's attic. Yeah, I watched it with a bunch of friends, and I have a memory of my friend who was out as a lesbian at the time, giving a look to another friend with the "I Want to Hold Your Hand" song. That I think at the time I was like, I feel like this must be on the internet. She knew this was coming. You know what I mean? About they were looking at each other of oh my God, this is it. This is the song. This is the song. So that's a really cute memory that I have of it.
Was it it was an event? Everyone paid attention to it, or you caught her doing it? Or was it everyone?
Or when you say it was your friend. My very good friend.
I mean, did this friend tell me she had a crush on me somewhere close? I don't remember before or after this. Yes. I don't think it was a big event, but I also don't know that it was I was the only person noticed. You know what I mean? I think it was somewhere in between those two extremes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I could also picture she does it and you're like, am I seeing this? And then you hold the secret of was this something I knew? Or was it well
very
known?
much not. It wasn't I was the only person that knew that she was gay, and then I was noticing. Everyone in the room kind of knew this fact, and then I just remember that being a little moment that happened around it. Yeah.
Wow. That is so crazy. I mean, when I was growing up and my group of friends that were boys, and we were, all of us came out also as gay, but I never felt like we all we had that. I mean, well, I guess we had one straight friend in our group that like many of us had
We
a
all have
crush
to have
on.
one.
We all have to have one because he was just like the fact that a straight boy is like friendly to gays. It's like, oh, the perfect man does exist.
I mean, we're going to be way off topic, but Adam will be really happy about this.
Yes.
I've had this conversation before that maybe I even said this on the pod. I think it's really interesting that like gay men have a thing for straight men, and I feel like gay women really like gay women.
Yeah.
Not that there's like no jokes about like, oh, liking straight girls,
Like
but
straight
like
girls, yeah.
I feel like it's very much not the kind of thing it is in the gay community of like, oh, I want this like really masculine passing. Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, I think, it's sadder because the root is more like we have been told that this is the ideal, what a man is. So it's like, yeah, you pine over what that is because it's like, I'm not inherently that. So
And I guess it is culture like pulling us towards masculinity all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Of like, well, yeah.
Masculine is ideal for like just like attract. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to say that like women have to be masculine to be gay. Obviously not. But like, I think that there's like less stigma to liking a masculine girl than there is maybe to liking a feminine boy.
Yes.
So
say that, Molly. That would be my dissertation. I would write a very, a dissertation on why give sissies a chance would be my social movement.
I'm not sure that we're inventing that concept, but you could definitely have your.
I will champion for it. Yeah.
RJ?
So I just remember like seeing the title of this movie like all the time at like Blockbuster. Because in Phoenix, like Blockbuster stuck around until like throughout my high school career.
Until 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
So like my mom and I frequented the Blockbuster. And I just always felt like this was a movie that I saw, but I never knew that it was a musical. I just knew the title was a song by the Beatles. My parents also weren't that big of Beatles fans. Like they were more like the disco Motown group. So like I never really knew about Beatles songs. I just picked it up from pop culture and RJ's favorite, American Idol, when they would do Beatles night and they would have to sing songs from like either Beatles night or like the Paul McCartney songbook. So that's kind of how I knew some of the songs. I didn't really know all of the songs when we were watching this movie. So that's pretty much it. And I didn't connect the dots that it was Julie Taymor until like way later. And then fun fact, for the Ampliverse book club, we read Song of Spider-Man, which is the written memoir of Glenn Berger, who wrote the book for Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, famously directed and conceived by Julie Taymor. So a lot of that that storyline, the movie was like about to be released when Spider-Man was starting to like form and take shape. So he would write about like the pressures that she was feeling about releasing the movie and not getting great reviews, being kind of like all at the same time like being criticized by this like crazy monster of a musical that's about to come out on Broadway. So I kind of had that not cloud my judgment, but I had that at top of mind when I was watching this, because I was like, okay, I know that like this was Julie at her like post Lion King. I am just so strongly of like my vision and everything, and
a clear auteur with a specific idea.
I'm guessing we'll talk more about Spider-Man later, but can you just give us the headline of like how does she come across in that memoir?
Can you actually, before that, can you just, for our mothers who have no idea who Julie Taymor is, can you tell people who Julie
Taymor is the director of Lion King on Broadway. That's like her biggest thing. Sure. Previously, she like directed Frida, which garnered a lot of like critical attention for Salma Hayek, which is why she's in the movie as a cameo. But she just has that very strong visual, like vision,
which is
big like puppets, puppetry, like giant mask work, like very visually,
kind of like almost reaching back into like how ancient theater operated, but like making it contemporary was like I think her main focus.
Yeah,
which is super. It doesn't work in everything, evidenced by this film, but it's like a cool specific idea that excites a lot of people for sure.
And she's very big in the American theater scene.
Yes.
The theater
Huge.
people.
She is like a choreographer, I think, technically by trade. So it also is incorporated with a lot of movement.
Yeah.
In her visual style.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in the book, he like writes her very with a conflicted feeling, obviously, because like at one point very understanding of like
Julie Taymor should have directed Cats.
Listen, say that.
It would have been so good.
Say that.
It would have been a mess, but it would have been so good.
I have some thoughts about that, but no, finish the Spider-Man thing.
That she like he was basically saying like, yes, we all like there were times where we felt like this is too much, but the main crux of the book is really like if Julie was given everything that she could have been given, in her like original thought of what the musical could be, it could have worked, but there were just so many things that went like the main executive producer died, like stuff like just stuff things kept happening that like her original dream kept.
So she's not fully sympathetic, but it's a conflicted portrayal. She's also not the villain of the book.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But also like he's very, very honest about like, you know, kind of like almost like verbally assaulty, like she'll lash out on people if they don't get it. Or like does what she wants.
That's just
like
a theater director.
But then it's just
what's
like
going on.
Yeah.
There?
What's also interesting about that is that RJ's never read a headline before, because that would be an excruciatingly long headline.
Yeah. I was more giving you an abstract. Yes, I was giving you an abstract and narrative.
I'm just pointing out for positive feedback here, RJ, not positive, constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing the pattern with the summaries that you do too. I'm just saying that I think we should examine where does there need to be an example and where does there need to not be.
I honestly just need to like start pre-preparing all my thoughts for the podcast.
Could you submit everything you're going to say to me about 24 hours in advance?
If only there was like a Google Doc where you could write your notes ahead of time.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea.
I do try to write my notes, but like in Cabaret, I was like, oh yeah, he could get it. That was the extent of my notes.
That was the note.
It's high low. It's I'm giving you variety.
It's medium low.
Medium low. Tepid. Adam, what is your relationship to the movie Across the Universe?
So I have never seen this film until last night. This is 2007 is the same year that like Hairspray and Enchanted came out, so we're definitely in the like post Chicago.
Oh, post Chicago boom.
Boom, yeah. I think people have said that before.
Yeah.
But I remember this movie coming out and I just didn't want to see it. I had no desire to see it. It doesn't look like a movie for me. The trailers were trippy because they included the like I Am a Walrus segment. So definitely there was like, you've got to be in a vibe, like that energy to see this movie. I don't really know the Beatles that well. I know like their major songs, but that's pretty much it. And like a cursory knowledge. Yeah, what's up?
RJ, you're not muted, so it's like I'm hearing you like moving your microphone.
Sorry, thank you.
I only have a cursory knowledge of the Beatles, so I like know their major stuff, but that's pretty much it. I don't really like stories about Vietnam. And I
just a personal preference, you know, some
not
people
interested in that whole war or like whatever people's feelings about it. It's just like not,
you know, some people don't like sour cream in their baked potatoes. Some people don't like Vietnam in their movie.
I think I am not trying to say anything about like obviously veterans or people who lived through the anti-war movement at the time or like anything about that. I just think that
good to cover
while
our
boomers were creating a lot of content, there was a dearth of content that was specifically regurgitating
sentiments
the Vietnam War, over and over in different forms. But it's always the same takeaway, which is like, we were in a bad war. We shouldn't have been in the war. And like, obviously the soldiers did what they did, but like, we shouldn't necessarily hold it against them. It was like, the system was corrupt, blah, blah, blah. And like, the conversation about Vietnam has truly never progressed past that. And it doesn't need to, because it's all, that's the crux of the Vietnam War. We shouldn't have been there. But like, this movie doesn't get any deeper than that. So I was like, it was fine. It was fine. It's just not for me.
I think you're saying, and I share the sentiment of like, you have like Vietnam fatigue. I think that that's really fair.
Yes.
I wouldn't just phrase it as like, I don't like having Vietnam things, but like, yes, I have a shared fatigue of like this portrayal of this time. And like, weren't we all so heroic for doing all these protests? Is like, I feel that we've acknowledged you all enough for that.
Yeah. We all watch Forrest Gump. So, you know, Great job, Robert Zemeckis. I think we really closed the nail on the coffin with that one.
I think also this is going to be a weird pod, and we will have listeners who will be yelling into their headphones like Rita told us that she always does, because none of us are going to be like the Beatles fan representative.
Yeah.
Because I don't dislike the Beatles, but like
Sure.
I, similarly to both of you, like I know some songs from cultural osmosis, but I don't have any particular relationship or feeling about them, honestly. And so I think we're all coming from like a similar place of like, yeah, sure, the Beatles, they're fine, they're famous, so we know them, but we like don't have any real thoughts about it.
Yeah. If I had to like pick one, I maybe would say Blackbird, just because I feel like that's the one that I've heard covers of like female singers that I've really enjoyed.
It's an acoustic bop.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's like simple to play, so I think a lot of people learn it for that reason. But it's a beautiful song, yeah.
Listen, the Beatles' discography is great. Like, no one's taking away that they knew how to write a song.
I'm a walrus.
We are at a point in the Beatles' legacy where, like, originally it was like predominantly women that liked the Beatles, and then like, and men were like, they're just they're not. And now we're at a point where there's like Beatles bros who are like, the Beatles are the greatest music that's ever existed. So we've like fully 180'd. Yeah. Because once again, women are always on the forefront of like pop culture, and then it takes a time for everybody to catch up. Anyway.
Wow, Adam is really, ever since his lack of feminist theory.
Second wave. Honestly, the second wave thing is the only thing that's not in this movie. A bra is not burned in this film, which is very surprising.
Yeah, this does not get covered at all in this 60s betrayal. Yeah.
Speaking of the Beatles, so so with Mamma Mia, I was like, I'm gonna do Mamma Mia. I'm gonna do ABBA.
Let's talk ABBA.
Say what's going on.
Let's give Agnetha her flowers.
Because who knows the names of the main? Okay, everyone knows who's in the Beatles. So I'm literally going to now read the first paragraph of the Wikipedia page, and that is all I'm going to cover about the Beatles because they're so ubiquitous that everyone knows the rest. So here we go. The Beatles were an English rock band formed in Liverpool in 1960 that comprised John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. They are regarded as the most influential band of all time and were integral to the development of 1960s counterculture and popular music's recognition as an art form. Rooted in skiffle, beat, and 1950s rock and roll, their sound incorporated elements of classical music and traditional pop in innovative ways. The band later explored music styles ranging from ballads and Indian music to psychedelia and hard rock. As pioneers in recording, songwriting, and artistic presentation, the Beatles revolutionized many aspects of the music industry and were often publicized as leaders of the era's youth and social cultural movements.
Now, for the listeners,
That's a beautifully written paragraph, by the way.
Would like to call out for the listeners that the word revolutionized and publicized were with S's.
So that, yeah, I think they're written the British way. So Google said they are incorrectly spelled. Because Google said, America, baby!
I really like that your thought process was everyone knows who the Beatles are, so I will read you the most overview thing I possibly could, which I know won't contribute to your knowledge.
Great.
And just then we'll blanket, just so you at the top of the mind.
Just to refresh, in case everyone was like, the Beatles, is that the one? Mick Jagger?
She loves you, yeah. I would say the first time I like connected with like, oh, the Beatles were a thing was a joke from The Nanny, because that was like some Mr. Sheffield and Fran like for an episode just say like quoted Beatles lyrics to each other, and I was like, oh, so like it's like a thing in the 60s, like I don't know.
I wish that I had any shared cultural references with RJ.
Never seen The Nanny?
You've seen The Nanny?
Oh, you're always pulling out. I've never seen The Nanny.
It's so good, Molly. You would love.
He's a Broadway producer. That's like the main thing.
I know that because RJ told me about it on this podcast.
Oh. Well, when we take our Showgays break, we'll do a Nancast where Molly and I rewatch Nanny episodes.
Do we have any thoughts about the history of the Beatles since we're on the topic before I move on to the film?
I mean, there's also been like
They were
More
a
pop
band.
culture references. The Powerpuff Girls did a Beatles episode called "The Beat Alls," and Mojo Jojo was swayed by like another
Mar Jar Jar Jar.
Mar Jar 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 was swayed by a different monkey that was like Yoko Ono type.
Oh, see,
Yeah, and then I think Family Guy did. It's something that's constantly parodied.
Yoko Ono has been unfairly maligned. She was an
Yes.
artist in her own right and shouldn't just be known as the woman who broke up the Beatles.
Yeah.
Also, though, I think what's interesting about the Beatles is that Taymor is also known for doing a lot of Shakespeare adaptations on film. And I think it's interesting how the Beatles, to me, have a similar place in our culture at this point of just like ubiquitously referenced foundational type of stuff. Like there was that movie that came out recently where it was like the guy.
Yesterday.
Yes, like
Yeah.
guy
Everyone
wakes
else
up.
had amnesia.
Yeah.
They didn't know about the Beatles, so he writes all their songs or whatever. And you can just like reference that, and you don't need to like explain what that is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting that Taymor does this sort of like pulling from the most well-known, the most, I assume everybody knows and likes this thing. And it was interesting because I read an interview with her that was done in 2018, I think, or maybe it was 2017, because it was the 10-year anniversary and they were doing like a re-release. And so they were interviewing her to be like, how do you feel about this movie 10 years later and during the Trump era and that kind of thing? And she said something about the like, oh, you know, it's sort of like Shakespeare is relevant all the time, which I don't love as an attitude because it's a very white colonialist mentality to be like, Shakespeare is universal to literally every single culture and experience. But I do think that it's interesting the way that she has been able to rethink texts like that and rethink other very commercially successful things, because her big thing she's known for is The Lion King, and she managed to take this Disney movie that everybody knows and like present it in an entirely different way, where then it became really respected as like genuine art.
Mhm.
Not that The Lion King from Disney is not art, but it's a different kind of art, right?
Right.
And so
Also derived from Shakespeare.
oh no, it's all him.
It's all him.
So I think that that's just a through line we could see through her career.
Yeah, because even in her development of Spider-Man: Turn of the Dark, they took the angle of like Arachne as like the Greek goddess to take spider form, and she's the big villain. So yeah, she loves to sink her teeth into it. Adam was also fully pouring himself.
Adam got up and he seemed like he was in a rush where I thought he was going to be like, oh shoot, I forgot to like turn off the stove or whatever, but he was rushing over to the bar cart behind you in order to pour the wine, and it was a perfectly framed shot of RJ giving me his real opinions about things, and just in the distance Adam just slowly
this
pouring.
good old wino in the back, just getting another pour.
Rita would really appreciate your bar cart. We got them a bar cart for Christmas last year.
I love my bar cart.
yeah.
It's
They
West
just
Elm,
got it.
girl.
Yeah, it took them a while to pick it out, and then it also took a long time to arrive because of supply chain. So I think it was like last week or something that they finally got the bar cart that we got for them as a gift like 2 years ago for Christmas.
That's funny.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Across the Universe, directed by Julie Taymor, as we have said at least 48 times at this point in this podcast. Screenplay is by Dick Clement and Ian LaFrennais. The story is by the three of them. It is produced by Matthew Gross, Jennifer Todd, and Suzanne Todd. It stars Evan Rachel Wood as the
Lucy?
titular Lucy of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It stars Jim Sturgis as Jude in the titular Hey Jude. And it stars
They're not titular.
of the song title.
I think it's eponymous when it's something that's named.
That's what I know that's the correct term. I just didn't. I was worried that I was going to pronounce eponymous wrong, so I got nervous and went with titular because I know how to pronounce that one.
Eponymous.
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 And then Joe Anderson plays Max from another song.
Is Max a name in the song?
Yes, I don't know the song. It's on the
I don't know.
Wikipedia page. It
I
has
don't know the Beatle that was
every
responsible.
character, which song their name comes
Gotcha,
from.
gotcha. Okay.
Cinematography is by Bruno Del Bonel. I'd like to shout him out because there is some cool camera work happening
A lot of cinematography, yeah.
Edited by Françoise Bonneau. The music is by Elliot Goldenthal. The production, and I guess also John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Elliot Goldenthal is Julie Taymor's partner.
Oh.
Does he do? Is it like that one editor that also always works with Martin Scorsese? Like, does he do all her scoring for her films? Maybe.
I don't know, but they've been together since 1982, according to Wikipedia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Production company: Columbia Pictures, Revolution Studios, Gross Entertainment, Team Todd. Distributed by Sony Pictures Releasing. It was released. First, did the festival circuit, so it did the Toronto International Film Festival first, and then it went wide October 12th, 2007, which is also John Lennon's birthday. Its running time is 133 very long minutes. Its budget was $70.8 million, and it only made 29.6. So officially a flop. I only have a few things because if you love the Beatles, if you said, "Ooh, I know every little moment of the Beatles," I know. I lived through it, and I
was one of the girls.
I love trivia. Yeah, what you want to do is you want to go to imdb.com. You want to search for Across the Universe. You want to scroll down till you find the trivia section. You want to click on that, and then the entire trivia page is just every single visual reference, name check, song, like background vocal, just how they stack the vocals of the songs, like anything, you'd live. I read it and I was annoyed. So we're different people.
Adam read it and went, I live.
I don't live.
You got me, gal.
You got me, gal. Well.
So here's some interesting facts I found throughout all of the things that I read today. Jake Gyllenhaal was originally to play the main character, Jude.
Not mad about it.
Yeah.
The joint in the scene where they're like smoking, and
I get
it's like,
by.
I
get high with a little.
My friends
with a little help from my friends.
That makes sense that they. Oh, sorry. No, finish the thought.
Yeah, because the audience can't read the Google Docs.
I thought that for a second.
The joint in the shot. RJ and I were like,
"Where
is there
a tiny
so small
joint?
that it's like?" No, the joint is non-existent, so that they didn't get an.
But
R
they still
rating.
blow out smoke.
Yeah,
but they still blow out smoke.
The joke I was gonna make that now makes sense is it makes sense that they edited that out because without that joint, there's not really any drug references in this movie. So
right.
Yeah, that was really the only thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like Evan Rachel's Wood.
Evan Rachel's
Wood. Evan Rachel's breasts are like on display in this film, which is fine.
True.
But I also think she was 18 when she shot this, so it's just like we're at a point in time. We're at a point in time.
Wow.
It is a female director, so I do feel a little bit better about that, I guess. But like, we're just at a point in time. Jojo, the character Jojo, is supposed to be Jimi Hendrix, and
pretty obvious.
Sadie is Janis Joplin.
Which when the first scene happened and
Helter
you hear
Skelter.
she's singing Helter Skelter, but it's like the visuals of Lucy being arrested. I was like, that sounds exactly like Janis Joplin. Who was singing? Is that Evan Rachel Wood? So when Sadie appeared, I was like, oh, okay, got it.
And if I knew who Janis Joplin or Jimi Hendrix was, that would be interesting to me.
Wait, you're joking.
He knows the
I know the names are. Can I name a single song? No.
To be fair, I said
But
Janis Joplin, and Adam was like, "Who's that?"
You
But
have
he's heard
a
of Jimi
sense
Hendrix.
of who they are in like
Sure,
pop
they
culture.
were like rock people, counterculture. It's giving the late 60s, early 70s. It's giving.
They never did a Jimi Hendrix in Glee, so I'm guessing
that's
why.
true.
And they never sang Somebody.
No, they
to
probably
Love.
did at some point down the line. I just stopped watching it.
I just feel like I always feel like I like have pop culture blinders and I miss a lot of things. And the idea that you would be like, it's not immediately clear to me that these people are Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin is so wild.
No.
Janis Joplin
I
is
have a very specific like 8-year span where I know nothing about pop culture, which is very funny because it's the exact same 8-year span that like my mother went from adolescent to adult. So you'd think it's like the media that she would be like,
hey, this is what I had. Yeah.
But also my mom was not of the counterculture movement. So she doesn't like
very straight laced.
she doesn't feel that like kinship with counterculture stuff in the same way that like some boomers do. So
Yeah.
I just didn't get shown it. I got shown a lot of 80s stuff.
I didn't get shown. I mean,
And I got
my
shown a
parents
lot of
also weren't
early
like
60s
super counterculture, but I just like know who Janis Joplin is because I've been alive in the world. It's just so wild to me.
I
But
know who she is. I
Yeah.
can't name a song.
I can't name a song, but I know her voice and her like overall
Sure.
presence.
Yeah. She's giving what's her name? Before what's her name?
Yeah, good one.
She's giving Janis Joplin is what
She's
she's
giving
giving.
Janis
No,
Joplin.
She's giving what's
Excuse
Janis
me.
Joplin.
what's her name?
Give me a song. Give me what?
Hat. Giving Witch.
Oh, Stevie Nicks.
She's giving Stevie Nicks pre-Stevie Nicks.
Hat. She's giving Thorgy Thor before she did
Yes.
Stevie Nicks with the
This is a
tambourine.
really good Thorgy Thor impression, you guys.
Woo! I will say, Janis Joplin, I had a crash course, another pop culture reference for.
I thought you were about to say you had a crush on Janis
No, no,
Joplin,
no.
and I was like,
I got a crash course on like basically the standards of like American rock.
because of American Idol.
No, because of a show called Rockstar in Excess, where the band In Excess was looking for their new lead singer because he died.
RJ's
so
just
they did-
making up pop
and
culture
so
now
they
because he
did-
knows that I don't
so-
know any of the things
so
he
they did
refers
it-
to.
I
He's
can't-
just
I
coming
can't fact
on and
check
he's
him.
just saying so there was a
Misinformation.
show
Okay,
that
Alex
happened in
Jones.
2003
Yeah.
and I need you to believe me that this
And
is
they were
real.
trying to find the new. So it was American Idol style. People were voting, but it was for the new. So all the songs that they sang were like like rock standards. So I learned Janis Joplin. I learned all the girls, through that because they had men and
Who
women.
is? Can I ask a real question? Twyla Tharp is a choreographer, right?
Yes,
And she
think
did the
so.
Billy Joel musical, Moving Out.
and she was in Hair. She was
I
a dancer
guess.
in the movie Hair.
I
For
don't know
some
where this is
reason, I
going.
think
Where's
because
this going?
there's some like Twyla Tharp, TT, Janis Joplin, JJ. For some reason, that gets
You
mixed
keep-
up in my mind. They're not the same,
They're not the same.
but
And isn't Twyla Tharp like a contemporary person?
more
she was like
contemporary than
seven.
Janis Joplin.
She
for sure.
she was like 70s. I want to say.
For sure.
Ugh.
I truly.
Where
I
is
just don't know.
where is that American musical theater
I just
book?
don't know. And I'm literally at a point in my life where I just like, I don't care. This is why I don't feel bad when like people like millennials will get on TikTok and be like, Gen Z doesn't know who sang Scrubs. Can you believe? And it's
First
like,
of all, it's no Scrubs.
yeah, whatever.
Twyla
I
Tharp
just-
was also big in the 60s. I don't know why I was thinking she was.
Oh, okay.
Wow, you're a
Great person.
real asshole, Molly. How dare you?
I'm really the most ignorant person on this podcast. It's really embarrassing.
Moye Matai.
Moye La Moya.
La Moya Mataini.
Okay.
Stupid.
Yeah, no, they don't have to know who sang No Scrubs. We'll all be dead soon. So
Moving on. What is this
was
editing
that?
ordeal, Adam, that's on the Google Doc? So apparently the executive at Sony, who was the distributor, or maybe it was Columbia, I don't know. Columbia and also Sony merged at one point. So he basically like recut the film to make like a 30-minute shorter, more audience-friendly version of the film.
Oh,
And Miss Taymor did not have it, girl.
yes.
She was pissed. She threatened to sue, blah, 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 blah. They ended up they tested out her version on like test audiences and it went well. And then they did like a slow rollout of the film and it did fine. Like their problems were not like the editing per se. So,
did
yeah,
he take out all the drug stuff in the middle?
that has to be what it is.
That has
to be
almost
what it is.
Every single, even the positive reviews are like, that entire section needs to go.
Yeah.
That's approximately 30 minutes.
That
of
was the
length,
point
so-
at which RJ took that photo of me being like,
I like this movie,
I'm
but
so
I would
sad.
pay good American dollars for somebody to re-edit this without the drug stuff in it.
that part
Yeah.
out. Sorry, Bono.
Sorry, drugs.
Genuinely sorry, Eddie Izzard, because she's amazing, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
And Adam like clocked it right
is.
away. She was just like, "Oh, that's Eddie."
that's Eddie. I know. I truly know Eddie's voice. I can pick it out of
oh,
anything.
anywhere. Yeah.
I have seen
First
so
10
many
seconds of
Eddie
being on
Izzard
screen.
specials
Yeah.
so many times.
Yeah.
I know the voice. So anyway, the theatrical cut ended up being her version, and then she had them destroy every single
Oh my
version of the other cuts.
Like
And
the
then
books in Alexandria.
And
So
then they
were
had
the
to
cuts
agree-
of this movie.
they had to
RJ
agree.
finally made a reference I got.
Thank you. I gotta go way. You gotta go way back.
Way back
Way
for that mutual reference point.
Yeah, remember when Molly was like, I don't really like musicals, like ending in like 1990, starting in like 3000 BC. That's really that entire history. It's not into it. So she had them like promise. I don't know. This is
Pinky promise.
Pinky swear that they will never re-edit her.
Oh my god.
Except for like television versions, which they have to edit for time. Yeah, that's it. That's all I had. This movie won. No, I'm sorry. This movie was nominated for one Academy Award. It was nominated for Best Costume Design. And this movie was nominated at the Golden Globes for Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy, but it did not win.
I'm surprised it didn't get anything for like cinematography and like scenic design or I don't know what
Production
it's called.
design. Yeah.
There's like I feel like there should be more design categories that it would have
I
been
agree.
put up
That
for,
was like the main thing that I was like, oh, this is okay, Julie's. This is the vision at work.
Yeah.
The problem is I think there's a lot of cool things happening if I was like to objectively look at it. The problem would be, my guess is that they couldn't decide what was cinematography and what was editing, because there is so much post-production work happening on top of what's being filmed. So it's like, what do you draw as the line?
Yes, but I mean, surely all movies have that problem.
Yeah. This just has that to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would guess would be, I had it and then I lost it, so I made it up. I mean, I was making all this up, so I don't know. I don't know why I was nominated. Why are you asking me? Stop yelling at me, Molly.
I love you saying I'm making all this up, like you're like realizing that the way that human beings speak is that we don't pre-plan everything.
We don't pre-plan speech.
Although
Despite my request to RJ, he has not submitted a script. But
yeah. I also the other thing I was gonna say, this movie does a great. If you were like, I want to watch a movie that seems like it's actually just a series of music videos that's about a feature-length film long, this is the absolute film for you.
Visual album of a concept of
Black
the
is
Beatles.
King Who. Across the Universe did it first.
I think that you are underselling the plot of the movie. I'm not saying it's an extremely strong plot, but there is a through line. There are
Adam's
characters
jaw
we
just
get
hit
to
the
know.
floor, and now he has to get surgery to fix his jaw.
It is so great. It was amazing last night. I was like, I'm so excited for this episode we're going to record tomorrow, because Molly absolutely is going to be like me. She's going to go off. We're going to like commiserate together. And I texted this photo of me absolutely pouting watching this film. And Molly was like, and then I said something about how I hated it. And Molly was like, oh, I do not feel the same. And I looked at my phone I was agog for like 10 minutes. I was like, I can't believe that my comrade in arms has betrayed me. This Benedict Arnold has gone behind mine back.
There you
so
go.
Mad. It's fine. Whatever. We'll get to the movie. So we are finally back into an era in which I can tell you the weekend release box office ratings. Isn't that exciting? I love doing this because it's such a moment in time. And since we were all in high school when this came out, I was like, what a trip. We'll all remember all these films because we saw maybe 5 of them. Okay, so starting with the week it went wide, which was its 5th week in release. This is the weekend of October 12th. Across the Universe comes in at 8th place. This is the highest placement it got in its entire original run. 8th place. Great. Good job. 7th place is a movie called The Kingdom by Universal Pictures. I don't know. Do you know, RJ?
I feel like that was the movie that was like Matt Damon in like the Huns or China, like defeating
that movie.
Defeating Huns or something like that.
I thought that was because I feel like we were in college when that happened. Because I feel like college is when we invented being mad about cultural appropriation.
We are right.
And by we, I mean the three of us. Yeah, exactly.
No one was doing it before us. Six
It's
was
a Jamie Foxx movie about a federal agent who assembles a team to infiltrate and destroy a terrorist cell based in Saudi Arabia.
well, that's very post 9/11 movie making. I'll say that. Number 6 is a
That
movie.
just reminded me of the toxic patriotism of the 2000s of the Grease 2 episode we did at the end when we were like,
Oh yeah,
American flags, trend alert.
Oh yeah.
Islamophobia. Yeah.
Number 6 is the sequel to the Elizabeth movie from the 90s. This is Elizabeth the Golden Age, starring Cate Blanchett. I believe
Slay.
she ends up being nominated for the Academy Award for this role.
Mhm.
Number 5 is The Heartbreak Kid by DreamWorks.
Nope.
Nope. Number 4, Michael Clayton. We're getting George Clooney. We're getting Tilda Swinton.
Tilda,
We're getting
nominated.
Is that a movie about a lawyer?
Yes.
I feel like
It's like a
It feels like a
legal thriller.
Manchurian candidate, but
It's
it's
a legal
not.
thriller, yeah.
a Pelican Brief.
A
Yes,
Pelican
a Pelican Brief.
Yeah. An albatross thong. A pelican brief.
Stupid.
Stupid. A toucan boxer.
I hate that the first bird I went to for
Albatross.
pelican was albatross. Albatross. Okay, number 3 is We Own the Night, which I know from my brain is a title of a film. Couldn't tell you anything about it.
Mm-mm.
Number 2 is The Game Plan by Walt Disney Studios.
Oh,
Nothing? No.
Is that like a rom-com maybe? I feel like it's like a Sandy Bullock flick maybe.
Hold on, let me look real quick. Because I have a feeling it's
like
gonna
The
be,
Proposal.
I have a feeling it's gonna be like,
Oh,
it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson as a football player with a ballerina daughter, I think.
Okay, that does make more sense that Walt Disney released it.
And then the number 1 film in the box office the weekend of October 12th, 2007, was a little film from Lionsgate called Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married, which did so well at the box office during its run, it got a sequel the very next year, Why Did I Get Married 2.
I remember renting this from Blockbuster.
I watched it with friends. in
and
high
I
school.
watched this at home, and I was like, "This is hilarious!"
I've never laughed harder at a film, period.
Yeah,
Period.
I mean,
yes, you have.
Molly's never seen it.
We all know
Spoiler
that the
alert.
straights are struggling, but I don't know why they need so many movies about the fact that they hate their marriages. But I assume it's a great movie.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, it's a Tyler Perry movie, so
It's it's Chris Rock doing his thing.
Chris Rock. He's in it?
He's the main guy.
No.
Oh, am I thinking of I Think I Love My Wife? I'm thinking of
I think
Love My Wife.
I think that's that one. Okay, let's move on.
Wait, I'm fact checking.
Oh.
And I'm letting RJ spend more time to clank his fork around his plate.
ASMR.
No. This will not become an ASMR podcast. I'll tell you that much information right now. Tyler Perry seems to be the main guy, and Janet Jackson is like.
Janet Jackson,
Janet Jackson.
absolutely.
Also,
Scott.
sorry, I just saw that Why Did I Get Married 2 actually came out 2010, 3 years later, so I apologize.
They're gonna cancel us.
High school was
if
a
the
blur.
network finds out about the fact that you keep messing this
If
up,
the
network's
Tyler
gonna
Perry
pull the plug.
Studios finds out.
Let's move on. I don't know. I can't be the one to
Why don't I
engage.
steer the
I think
conversation
you're
for
gonna have
this?
to.
Great.
'cause
All right, boys.
I'll steer it right to the end, and we'll go right into the closer if we don't.
I enjoy this movie. I don't know
Great.
that I would have watched it again without this prompt to watch it again,
Sure.
but I watched it on a Sunday night. It was a great time. What I didn't love as the opener, as I was being reintroduced to this movie from high school, is that it starts with Jim Sturgis, very pretty man. Enjoyed him being in this movie. But he turns to the camera on the beach, and it's pretty intense that he's looking at you. The camera gets pretty close. And his song is something about like, hey, could I tell you about this girl that I knew? And then we like see some footage of Evan Rachel Wood. And I was like, do you know what? No. I have seen enough
Do you know
movies
what? No.
about white men wanting to tell me about some girl that they fell in love with that I was like, there's not a less appealing way you could start a movie than having a white man turn to a camera and say, could I tell you a story about a girl that I knew? It's the least interesting thing to hook me in the world, honestly.
I do feel like I understand that this movie, they're coming up with an entirely original concept.
Yeah.
So this movie can be whatever it wants to be, clearly. But I feel like maybe they were like, well, it should be told, like, a man has to be the protagonist because it's the Beatles and they're like 4 guys. I don't know if that was the reasoning or if they were just like, story is man. And that was, we just started from there, which I think was like Aristotle's first tenet of storytelling.
First one has to center around a man. Yeah.
That's why Medea flopped, speaking of Tyler Perry.
Shut up.
It's interesting because Julie Taymor, very famous woman director, and, you know, one of the writers on it.
Right.
Although not known for centering women in her stories specifically, she did, of course, do Tempest with Helen Mirren as Prospero. So she's done some recasting into women. But and Frida, she directed Frida, which is obviously about amazing historical female figure. Yeah, I mean, I think they probably
Frida
thought...
Claxton.
Shut up. That's a Golden Girls joke.
That's a Golden Girls joke. I'm so
It's
sorry.
not
I'm so sorry.
Frida.
I was trying to think of a funny Frida because you didn't say who the famous Frida was. So I was like, running through Fridas in my mind.
Panicked to try to find the joke. Anyway, I think they probably were like, let's do a love story. That's very clear to
Beatles
be
songs.
the center.
Yeah,
Lots of
Beatles songs are
songs.
about love.
Yeah. And I think they probably wanted the character that's from Liverpool.
Liverpool.
well.
Liverpudlian.
Not that it's like really necessary. There's not like a song that the Beatles sing where it's like, here is a song about Liverpool, where like you have to have some explanation for it. But I think it's a fun connection.
Ode.
Sure.
An ode.
Is that it?
Oh, I forgot I have to steer the podcast.
You
Sorry.
sure are. It's all you, girl.
So,
Captain Molly aboard.
Speaking of ships.
Jude, our main character, then we see our 2 eventual lovers who are in love with other people. Jude makes his way on a boat across to America, and we have a little cute moment where not really cute, but like he thought that maybe his dad was a professor at Princeton because he knew that his dad worked there, but then it turns out his dad is a janitor. And then he just kind of ends up hanging out with Max. And I did want to bring up this scene because they sang I Get By With a Little Help From My Friends. And Rita told me about how that they wanted that to be their senior song when she was graduating from high school.
Oh my God.
Yep. And she wanted it to be their senior song, but they wouldn't let them make it the senior song because of the line, I get high with a little help from my friends. And she nurses this grudge to this day that she thinks it's ridiculous. And her school wouldn't
Rita,
let her
I
sing that
think you
song.
have grounds for a lawsuit, I think. So I think you should get the class back together.
I think
Class action lawsuit.
Class action.
If-
A literal
if anyone's-
class
Literal
action.
class action.
If anyone has the qualifications to lead that charge, it is
would
my
be-
mother who worked in litigation.
Yeah,
So,
it would be Rita.
Rita, you retired now? You got some
Fun
time?
little project.
Yeah.
You know, some
Out of
people garden.
retirement, Some people play golf. Some people
Yeah.
file class action lawsuits for fun.
Yeah.
Good time.
I will ask this prompt as we talk about the introduction of all these characters. What did we feel about the way that the characters are introduced, and who did you feel connected to and not connected to in the way that we learned about our cast of characters?
I'll let RJ talk first.
I as far as like how each character was introduced, I did appreciate what was being done. Obviously, they were kind of just like being thrusted to us with a song. And that was kind of like the moment where I was like, okay, I'm not under this is yes, there is a narrative, like a linear narrative, but like we're seeing like glimpses of just like this is just the turmoil, fast and loose times of this period.
Very music heavy. Yeah.
Yes. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like sit along for the ride and just like kind of accept what is shown to me. I think I was most it's hard because I think like I would say Prudence probably had the best like first impression, but throughout the story
Goes nowhere.
throughout the story, I was most affected and like connected with Max. I think I felt like his journey was the most compelling. And I really liked his portrayal, and I think he played the character just very well and very true to like what that person would be going through at this time. And then just like also really liked Evan Rachel Wood's portrayal. I just really liked seeing her. And I just like seeing her act. So, but I think, yeah, like Prudence, I think had the best like entrance, I think, because it was very clear like what this character's stakes and what their objective is and what they are, who they are. But ended up kind of like following along with Max's journey a lot more. What about you, Adam?
I have a problem. Okay. I think mostly how they're introduced is fine. I do have issues with how JoJo is introduced. That whole sequence is not great. But I think it's fine. This movie, I think, to me, what I find the biggest flaw in this movie, and there are a few, but I think the biggest one is that it feels like this is what it feels like. Do you know that? I'm going to do the Ross Matthews. Do you know that thing? So in senior year of college, we did the 24-hour theater project, and I was a playwright for it. And it was the first year where we did it where there was like a challenge it was like a contest. It stopped being like, we're just doing theater. And like, for some reason that year it was like, and now there's points being awarded. And I was like, well, for what? Anyway.
I don't remember that there were points. Continue.
It was all Sarah Espinoza who came up with it, by the way. Anyway.
Gotcha.
Not to call out people.
I directed Adam's play, and I don't remember any of the points that we got.
Oh, great. So you'll remember maybe that or you probably weren't there yet. This is why you don't know. So, playwrights were told that if we used, there was like a list of things that if we put into the play, we would get like bonus points for doing.
Oh, okay.
This movie is the equivalent of me putting every single thing to get the bonus points into it when there's no reason to.
Should we quickly explain what a 24-hour theater festival is for?
I had to write a play in 24 hours and then we did it the next day.
You have 24 hours from the first moment the playwright gets the prompt to the time that the play is presented. So that time to write, direct, put it on,
rehearse,
costume design, all that stuff.
So I put all of the challenges. I was like, I'm going to get the points. And it wasn't good because I focused too much on that and not just like doing my little plot. It was
amazing. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it was bad. It was a very bad script. And it's fine. It's 24 hours. Who cares? But this movie is the equivalent of that, where they were like, I have to fit as many Beatles songs into this film, whether they work or they don't. They have to be in here. We've paid allegedly $10 million. So we have to get all of this in. We have to get the girlies in. We got to get the people in the seats, butts in seats. We got to get them to see. We have to remember the lineage of the Beatles.
It does. I think you're right that it is overstuffed with music. It seems like they should have changed the levers a little bit to do at least 15% more plot and scenes.
Yeah,
with less music. Yeah,
because you're so aware that they're working backwards. Yeah, right. They're taking the songs to make the plot. Fine. I love Mamma Mia. That's fine. They're going backwards from it, but then there's not given enough time between the songs for you to develop a relationship on screen with the characters. So, like, pretty soon in, we're supposed to believe that Jude and Lucy have chemistry. And not once in this movie do I think these people have chemistry. I think they're good actors. I think they are a fine looking couple. So I can go along with that just for the sake of like aesthetic purposes. I like to see two attractive people smush their faces together. But I did not feel at any point in this movie where I was like, there is a deep attraction and longing they have for each other that is like ephemeral. I did not feel that.
Hard disagree. RJ?
You have to break the tie. So, you are the Kamala Harris.
No,
For
I
the-
heard you
to
taking a
my
breath.
Democrats
I heard you
and
taking
Molly's
a breath,
50
but I wanted to make sure
Republicans.
whatever you said that I had a chance to do a quick rebuttal out of there. I think it's great chemistry.
I would say, I think for the first time ever, there's a tie, and I think you're two twinners. I think that there is chemistry. I think I bought it more in some numbers than others.
So I win, is what you're saying.
Crown it.
Crown it. I think that you were in a bad mood, and I think you did not appreciate that they have chemistry. I think, to me, this movie works because I like their love story. I like them as a couple, and so the fact that that's the very simple through line of it is just, will these two end up together, works for me on just like a fundamental basis. I find the bowling scene where they sing "Score Tonight."
Score tonight. We're gonna score.
That was a Grease 2 reference. Now our
listeners.
Our
Listeners.
favorite episode.
Grease 2 is our new Christmas on the Square.
Yes, it is. It's definitely going to become the new Christmas on the Square. So there is a bowling scene. I actually don't remember what the song is at all. This is where our lack of Beatles knowledge is going to fail us.
And
But
there's 30. That's the
it's
problem.
a song. Yeah, it's a song about like
I think
this
it's
girl's
Hello.
face, or no, it's not a famous one. I would remember Hello.
Hello, baby.
I can't hear shit.
There's this
Hello.
scene where they're in the bowling alley and he's singing about how he's met this girl and he's falling for her and stuff, and the lights are all different.
Falling,
and
yes,
there's
I'm
choreography.
falling, and
Yeah.
she keeps calling me back again.
And
That's
it's
what
very like 60s folksy, upbeat, like
Yes.
cute love song. And so to
Yes.
me, that really
Pop
like
rock.
that song sells it to me, and I'm really happy about them falling in love with each other. I will say that it's a little weird because I don't know what their ages are exactly, but Jude, because he has this very clear like working class background,
Yeah.
he's like works his way through a shipyard to get on a ship to go to America. He feels like he's much more of an adult than she is at that
Yes.
point because she is still in high school.
Yeah.
He's like independent enough that he's like worked for a paycheck and like traveled to a new country and stuff like that. And she is very much like still just beginning to emerge. Now, I think they do a really good job of having her mature over the course of the film, and they get
Mhm.
together at like an appropriate time where it's not like super creepy, but it's like a
Yes.
little like, ooh, I think we'd work a little harder in 2022 to like get these two to be introduced to each other on a little bit more of a parody in terms of maturity level. But I don't find it to be, totally off-putting or anything.
Yeah, I almost wish that like, because technically that bowling scene is her senior year Thanksgiving, right? So that's the first time he's seeing her, but it's really not until the summer after she's graduated, where she's in New York, that they actually fall in love. That I almost wouldn't have minded if they just planted the seeds and then like did more of the falling in love like in New York. Which I think
'cause-
was what they were trying to do with the song, but like yeah.
Because also what happens in between that is that her boyfriend, who has enlisted in the war, dies. And so
Dies.
she has this traumatic thing. Again, maybe not
wants to
with the
escape.
like women's trauma, using it for a plot device, whatever.
Yeah.
But you do have, she lives through this thing that you understand makes her much more adult and have to live in the sort of this
Her
world where bad
edge.
things happen. And it becomes her core motivation to become this activist eventually in the movie. And that's really like what is the most important thing about her character, is that she is this activist against the war.
Mhm.
So I think that works well. And I think,
Yeah, I think I just like, she's just like a stronger protagonist for me.
yeah,
Than
So
him.
it's frustrating that Jude is like the main character of this film, because like he's like weirdly apolitical about a thing that like,
well, I think that's an inch. The movie is asking this question about, can these two be together, because he is very apolitical and she's extremely politically active. And I actually think that's interesting. I think to me where it fails is that because it's so oversaturated with music, it doesn't have enough chances to like have actual scenes to discuss that tension and this question. But I think we should put a pin in that concept, because I think the movie is trying to ask a real question with that fact. I don't know that Jude, though, he is our framing device, which suggests that he's the main character. But I totally agree. Like, I watched the movie sort of through her. Like, to me, it's her story in a lot of ways, and that's the character that I feel connected with, and that I am like following what's happening to her. So yeah, I can get on board with the idea that they should not have started the. I already said why I didn't want them to start the movie with Jude, but I can also get more on board with the dramaturgical sense of maybe it should not be framed through Jude.
But you brought up a point about the grief she suffers because
Yes. Let's go back to that scene.
so her boyfriend dies. I think his name's David or Daniel.
Daniel, I think.
It's not important.
It doesn't matter. We don't
He
see
exists
him
to die.
ever again.
He exists to die.
And it is exactly countered his funeral with the 1967 riots of Detroit. Famous. I think they're referenced in Dreamgirls, so actual
Yes.
historical events. But
That's how we know events are historical. If
right.
it's referenced
Yeah.
in movie musicals.
Obviously.
And yeah.
Right.
We only know about things in the 60s because they're in Dreamgirls. So
we wouldn't know about World War II if not for The Sound of Music and Cabaret, and that's
Right.
important to remember.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so they're like countered as like two. It feels very Crash to me, the like 2005 movie Crash, which is like about all these different people and their disparate lives, but how they all connect through like trauma, basically. It's not a good movie. But there's the riots in Detroit, and then a young man dies. This is during Let It Be, one of the most famous John Lennon songs ever, probably. And I didn't love like framing it to be like her going through her boyfriend dying in war, horrible. And also we're not going to play Trauma Olympics. It just felt weird to parallel something that's
Racially.
Yes. It was a
charged.
strange comparison of the two things.
Yeah.
And let me just recount as neutrally as possible for the listeners the series of shots that happens. So Evan Rachel Wood's character, she's like riding her bike down the street, and then she sees the army going to the house of her boyfriend and sees his mother get the telegram, and then she's like crying on the porch, so we understand, oh my gosh, her boyfriend died in the war. Smash cut to this boy who's maybe 13, would you say?
Yeah.
Sure.
Singing Let It Be while hiding behind a cop car in Detroit. We see all this imagery that tells us it's the Detroit riots. And then we cut back to Evan Rachel Wood at her boyfriend's funeral. They're like folding up the flag, all of those signifiers. And then we cut back to Detroit, and that boy is dead. He is in a coffin, and we're watching the viewing of the body and people walking past. And one of those people is JoJo, and that is how we meet JoJo. Haven't had any scenes.
I didn't even clock him as a character because he is introduced the way Liza Minnelli's character is introduced in the Cabaret, where it's just like, and her. And
You think he's just going to be another mourner. And in fact, because it had been a long time since I watched this, I was like, oh my God, does this exist just as this scene? Holy crap. No. Like, I had forgotten that JoJo was a character, and I was like, why is this scene in? She just felt like she had to include the
riots,
the civil rights movement. And so then we end the sequence on JoJo's face at the funeral, and you kind of have this moment of like, oh, this must be like kind of an important character. It's not really until the next scene he's in where he's like at a train station going to New York that you're like, oh, we'll continue to follow this guy. But it is like the use of this little black boy is very like I mean, I made a joke that her boyfriend exists just to die, but like this is in an extreme circumstance of like, let's use this black child's body to be a metaphor for trauma. Yeah. And it feels upsetting in a Black Lives Matter.
Yes, in the Black Lives Matter
era. Because I always want to say post Black Lives Matter, but I don't mean, obviously we're not after it. We're in there's
in a post-racial America. You can say it, Molly. It's fine.
Yeah, in a post-racial America.
This is 2007. We hadn't elected Barack Obama yet as president, so yeah.
Yes, we hadn't yet accomplished post-racial America, but then we did fix it.
Yeah, we didn't fix racism yet, yeah. Julie was trying. Julie was putting
This is a joke. Alert. Alert. This is a joke.
Oh, no.
America is fucked. Alert. Alert.
I just think that you would handle this with a lot more sensitivity to like, this is a real thing that still happens now versus at the time it feels like it was very sort of remember that, like we can just flash up some images and that'll just remind everybody of this thing that happened in the past.
Yeah, that was just the most egregious part, was that like because we didn't realize that it was an introduction to a new character. For me, I was like, we're just like using this like very traumatic experience of black pain to score and like contextualize Lucy's grief, that I was like, oh, this is such
It just
poor
feels bad.
taste.
It feels
It's
bad.
so like,
It feels very bad.
Icky.
And it's also even weird once you learn who JoJo is and follow his whole story, that his story is also not about the civil rights movement. And so
and didn't connect that he fled Detroit.
he never mentions this boy. Like, who is that boy? I don't know. Is
Per
it
the-
his son?
Per
Is
the
it his cousin?
Wikipedia page, it's his younger brother, but like there is
No.
I missed a few things in this movie because I was like pouting. There is
His lips
no
were covering.
contextual or textual evidence that they are related.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Yeah.
To be clear. He's not sitting at the front of the church at the funeral. He like it's not clear. So I just want to point that out. Cuz I didn't even like kind of piece together that they were focusing on him at the funeral.
Mhm.
Like he was just like a number of images. They cut to a gospel choir, blah 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 blah. I'm so sorry for coughing. They
for
cut to a gospel
drinking.
choir and other shots, and so I just didn't even. I mean, like the whole time I was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I think like after he had already been introduced later when he like gets to New York that I like kind of was like, "Wait, was he at the funeral?" And that's just how we met him. I was lost. I was
Mhm.
lost.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Let's, if we feel like we've covered how bizarre this, again, I like this movie. I feel like this is gonna be like a Greatest Showman situation where I'm gonna say a lot of critical things, but I did like the overall experience. Since we're talking still about character introductions, if we feel like we've covered JoJo and why we disagree with how exactly that was brought in, should we go back to I Want to Hold Your Hand that RJ mentioned earlier, Prudence's introduction?
Yeah.
Sure, let's listen to a little bit of it first.
Oh, please say to me you'll let me be your man. And please say to me you'll let me hold your hand. Now let me hold your hand. I wanna hold your hand. And when
So this is the best song in the whole movie.
No, I have a different one, I think. Song, music song, number.
Best like pairing of the Beatles song that already existed. No, I'm not saying I Want to Hold Your Hand is the best Beatles song. I'm saying the best pairing of that song to visuals,
yeah.
a plot, like putting it into a movie. I feel that this is the best one.
Yeah. I think it's good. I personally have a different
Letterboxd would
favorite.
agree with you, Molly. I'll tell you.
Oh,
that.
I'm sure there were many millennials who saw
Screamed.
the light and
Yeah.
things clicked.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I have
synapses fired.
I have no biases in saying that this is the best song. Obviously, this is only as an objective reading of this song
Right.
that I think that the reveal. So for the listeners,
Yes.
Prudence is a cheerleader at her like small town somewhere.
Dayton, Ohio.
The teeny tiny town of Dayton, Ohio that no one's ever heard of, and
Daytonians are shook.
she starts to sing I Want to Hold Your Hand, and we see this shot of a football player and a cheerleader talking to each other.
Mhm.
So we all, because of compulsory heterosexuality, assume that she is singing about the football player, and then gradually he ends the conversation and leaves the shot, and then it focuses in just on the cheerleader, and then you go, oh. And as she sings this, we get these very dynamic shots. The thing that really sticks with you, I feel like, is at the end of the song, she slowly walks through the football field while the players are practicing their drills, and like
Flying around, butting
flying around,
heads,
tackling each other,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And we see her as this like very centered, calming presence that moves slowly through all of this chaos
Mhm.
to eventually leave the field. And then that like the next time we see her, she's hitchhiking to New York. So it's like she's metaphorically moving on.
This is like the first one where I would say this is a music video and not a song in a movie musical.
Yeah.
Because the bowling scene, 100% movie musical. That couldn't be more movie musical if it tried.
We all know that is the only. We're gonna need to add a category for our
For the awards.
year-end awards for best bowling scene.
Best bowling scene.
Best bowling.
But I totally see what you're saying, Adam. But I also want to say that I think this is the most Julie Taymor in some ways, in that it is a type of contemporary theater, the like hyper visual contemporary theater that Julie Taymor does, that Mary Zimmerman does, right? Like that kind of thing that I think it's less musical theater and it's more visual theater almost, this thing. And so to me, it's a really good application. I will actually say there's another song that we're going to talk about later that I think might be an even better application of Julie Taymor's visual eye. But to me, this one is the best pure combination of plot, character, use of the song, and then also the visuals.
Are you saying that this was the most Julie Taymor or the best Julie Taymor?
The best Julie Taymor.
Okay, because there are other songs that are the most.
There certainly are. There is some extravagance coming in terms of the Julie Taymor, but
Eddie
I
Izzard,
thought it was
we see you.
the subtleties of the drug sequence that we'll get to soon. No, I'm saying that I thought that this was the best use of the thing that I think Julie Taymor has this amazing eye for, of like what would be a really amazing visual moment of this scene.
Sure.
And also just, I think the song was just very relevant at the time, because obviously like very, 2007, like there's, you get like handfuls of like gay representation, I feel like in media, but it's not a lot. And I feel like this was a very like celebratory, not celebratory, but just beautiful portrayal of it in a major movie.
Honest in a way that like a lot of things don't.
And like how it feels when you have like a high school crush. Like I would say this is a very good high school crush representation, like visual representation.
And I think for the time, unusual in that it is a celebration of the love that she feels for this girl that she has a crush on. Because I feel like a lot of gay representation, to the extent that we had it in this like early 2000s, it was sort of like, oh, this could be a side character where like it's acknowledged that they are gay, but you maybe don't get to see them actually love somebody, right? It's like
they feel.
They're gay and therefore like they won't be in a straight relationship, but we won't ever see them in a gay relationship. But this is like, hey, this is a really beautiful and pure thing that this girl is in love with this other girl, right? And so I think that that's also a good thing. What's too bad is that she has the best introduction in the whole movie and then proceeds to gradually disappear throughout the rest of it.
It's
and
wild.
they do justify it to some extent where it's kind of like part of her character that she's flighty and stuff, but they just let her be gone for huge chunks of it, and then
literally just like, well, Prudence just ran away again.
To go back to Grease too, it feels like how Frenchie is in the beginning of the film, and then
couldn't write her.
You're like,
I was curious about that chemistry degree. Like, could you clarify how that happened?
I was watching
it
for Frenchie. Weird.
Yeah, so it's too bad that Prudence has this really beautiful introduction that is just totally not paid off on at all.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Let's move on if we can. I don't even remember really where we are plot-wise, but I guess we should intro Sadie because she's probably the only other named character that we haven't really talked about Max, actually.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about Max. And like Max's journey really is
I would
that
say Max is my favorite character in this.
Yeah, Max's journey is like he is kind of like someone who's in Princeton but not taking it seriously and just decides to drop out. And basically him and Jude go to New York to just kind of work and live. And in New York gets a letter that he's being drafted. So he has to show up. So that kind of becomes his journey of wanting to not be in the draft, but ultimately ends up having to. And kind of like goes through the trauma of being a soldier in the Vietnam War.
Right.
And struggling to kind of like get back into a sense of normalcy after it. And I felt like Max's numbers, so the I Want You song where he is drafted and he goes to like the physical examination, I was like, okay, this is giving production design. This is actually giving me something so unique that I'm like, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. The computer graphics, it's a little weird, a little soft.
It's 2007.
It's but that's fine,
Yeah.
you know. But like the moving stage, like the moving platform, like the checkerboardy, you know, like movements of the people being examined, and then the examiners was really cool.
The guys in the army with the like hyper mask
and masks. That I mean, when that I think that was like our first thing of masks, right, in the movie. I would say
yes.
That I was like, ooh, this is nice because it's like so specific. Like
and
the mask is so specific.
It's sort of somewhere in between a mask and a prosthetic, where it's their skin color and everything, but they have this, they have this like very rectangular, sort of like sculpted face of like big forehead, like, pointed big chins, and it makes them sort of robotic and foreboding.
Yeah,
right.
And the choreography and the movement too was just very, you know, robotic as well. That I was like, okay, this is visually exciting.
This
like,
was my favorite
cool.
number in the movie.
This is my favorite in the sense of like the on a purely visual basis. Like I think you used Julie Taymor the best. I just I want to hold your hand.
This is
more,
like the peak of what she does really well.
Yeah,
which is like accentuates the text with like really cool visual striking imagery that like reinforces the themes of what's going on,
and like in movement, so that it's dynamic, but then also in what you're seeing with like these prosthetics.
It wasn't just the mat. It was like the I Want You plus the masks plus the like
like the Uncle Sam coming out of the poster was very cool.
So
the
cool.
office like coming down from the ceiling, like squishing them. The like way he like gets stripped of his clothes, like when he in that sequence.
And I think that part of what is so cool about it is also that you see the theatricality of it with things like the conveyor belt that moves them and the way that the sets kind of come down, is that you can imagine this being done in a theater in a lot of ways, which I think is really cool. And I kind of wish that more of the movie had that sense like it could have been happening in a theater.
Yeah, I agree.
Carrying Lady Liberty and saying she's heavy. Is that here or is that later? That might be later, actually.
There's that other.
No, this is at the end of this number, because they kind of show them like carrying her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because technically it's I Want You / heavy is something.
Heavy from DreamWorks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I want to call it like she's pretty heavy, but it's something like that.
I'll look at
But this was also the moment that I was like, okay, this movie is like art house. Like this is like a artistic film that I was like, I almost wish they all went to this extent.
Yeah, this is definitely the most artistic feeling, I think, sequence. And it is great also in that it has this like political element as well.
It's called I Want You, parentheses, she's so heavy.
Yeah. I do think that one thing I would say, though, about the political elements of this movie is that it feels like it's very much about the personal toll of the Vietnam War, and Max's stuff specifically is about being like stripped of his individuality and being put into this apparatus. And I think that that's a valuable story to tell, but it's in some ways the movie is not political because it is about just the personal impacts of political decisions, but not so much about here's our vision of how the world should be organized, right? It's more just sort of about like how it's felt when political decisions happen from other people.
And I think like the biggest thing about the tragedy of Max is that because he drops out of Princeton, like they even say it, that like if you stayed in school, you probably wouldn't have been drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I genuinely wish this movie felt like it was okay just focusing on like 2 things instead of like 5. Like if it was just the love story and Max, which it mostly is,
right.
But there's enough other stuff. Like I kind of didn't need like Paco. Remember the character named
But
Paco?
but how would we have the love story without? There could have been less Paco for sure, but like I think there needs to be the Lucy gets really involved in Vietnam War protests stuff
Sure.
for the love story to have the tension. Yeah.
Sure. I
Where's
guess
the tensiveness, in other words?
In other words, where's the tensiveness? And like also the red herring of like it's another man, but it's like no, it's bigger. Like she's actually feels like
yeah, that
she
part
is
I
a
was
big-
less.
that was where I was like, I don't need to be worried. Why don't you just feel like bummed because she's like
Not spending time with
she
you.
feels like she has a purpose and you don't
Don't.
feel like you have a
Yeah.
purpose.
Because
I
that
think
was a really
that's-
compelling thing. And there's also like a scene where he says something about like, oh, you're gonna go to Sadie's show tonight. She says like, I'm gonna try. And so it could be the like you have
She's
this
busy.
other passion that it's taking you away from our social circle, our time in our relationship, that kind of thing. So yeah, the fact that there was this element also of like jealousy of the guy that's leading that was
Yeah.
all very boring and we did not
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah. And like
How else would a man want to defend a woman?
yeah,
Fight for her.
I felt like well, we'll get to that. Anyway, so let's listen to a little bit of I Want You.
I want you. I want you so bad. I want you. I want you so bad. It's driving me mad. It's driving me.
So do we feel like we've said everything we want to say
Lingard?
about I Want You? I think we've covered it. So there's
We're
obviously
also listeners. We're all having snacks right now too.
We're-
so-
we're a little bit unfocused, but definitely not the least focused we've ever been roll recording, to be fair.
absolutely.
We've been pretty far off the rails before.
Yeah.
So we want to go back to the Vietnam War. There's lots to talk about with that. That's obviously a through line of the film, but unfortunately we need to take a 30-minute detour to talk about psychedelics because this movie does. So, they, in the midst of finding their callings, whether forced or chosen, because Lucy is doing the protest, Max got drafted, Dude is struggling with his art.
No, continue.
This is a woman talking, and it was just like a little too much for you.
Exactly. And a woman directed it, and it has a woman in it. No.
Yeah, I know it's a lot to process. So, that's a reasonable outburst
Let's
to
go
have.
back to the Shakespeare days when men played women.
Great.
Great.
In the midst of all of this, they go to a party thrown by a guy who wrote a book who's like a spiritualist, and we get Bono singing "I Am the Walrus," or
yes,
you are the Eggman. I am the walrus, right? That's the. Does anyone remember the?
I am a walrus.
I can look it up.
It's
Hold on.
literally
You all know this song.
Rita,
It-
go ahead.
I am
the walrus. Okay.
I am the walrus. I think what happened is they convinced Bono to be in this movie. They had this idea, and then once they had filmed Bono doing this, they were like, shucks, we have to keep it in the movie because we did all this work to get Bono to do it. Because he does this whole song, they change all the lights or whatever to be like psychedelic.
They're at a
baby.
party. Yeah.
Mhm.
It starts at a party, so it's like fine at first. Like I was on board. I was on board.
I was never on board.
Adam was on board until they started scooping their own cups into the punch, and Adam looks at me and goes, "Without a ladle?"
That was
Okay.
pretty early in the scene. Yeah.
It was pretty early in the scene. He's okay. I will say I did have that reaction. We are living we're post COVID at this point.
Wow, you're manifesting bad energy.
Post.
To come back now.
Post. And I just watched them dip their cup with their hands, just like wee into the punch. And I had a moment that I don't think I've ever had in a movie where I viscerally felt like I was gonna puke. Like I was like, "Ugh." It was really bad. I
This
didn't like
of
that.
all the movies you've ever watched,
Oh,
this is the
not,
one.
You know, not the cabaret, not the Nazis and the cabaret.
And the dog dead. No.
No.
Not Two Girls, One Cup. It was this.
It was
Yeah.
this.
Oh God.
Okay.
Mom, don't look it up.
No moms look it up, please.
No, moms, look it up.
I just feel so we have this, then they get on a bus, they go to like a spiritual ashram situation. We get more psychedelics and an Eddie Izzard song. And again, love Eddie Izzard, but we spend so long doing the drug thing. And I feel fatigue of people, especially from like the 60s, 70s, and I feel like the Beatles were big in this, being like, we actually have a lot of wisdom and insight because we've done a lot of drugs. And like, you just screwed with your brain chemistry. And if you want to do that on your own dime and your own time, that's up to you. I don't really care that you did drugs. What I don't want is for you to tell me about it in excruciating detail because it's actually very boring.
The most frustrating aspect of that entire thing is that they did drugs. They felt like they got it. And then the 1980 hit, and all the boomers who were like, I've been revolutionized, turned right around and were like, drugs are evil, crack is whack, marijuana is the gateway, and now we're Republicans. There was a hard 180.
I think,
and
though,
it's really annoying.
To be fair, I'm sure that some of those were people whose lives got ruined by drugs. And then some of those were the people who were like the generation right after them being like, y'all have to shut up about these drugs.
It was Molly. It was the generation of Molly's.
It was me. No, but you know what it
Mollies.
is? It is Gen Z's reactions to millennials caring too much about Harry Potter. Is the people who came in to legislate about the war on drugs.
Yes.
They're like, too much of this.
You
Too
gotta
much
stop
of this.
using crying,
We have
laughing
to bring
emojis.
It down.
No
we have
more.
to bring this down.
Yeah.
Now, did they do that with a hard influence of racism in a way that we can all universally decry now? Yes. So it's not exactly Gen Z energy, but the point is, I don't think we can say it's the exact same people.
Fine.
But yeah, I do feel like every time somebody's like, remember the 60s when I like did drugs and we lived in communes? And I'm like, but you don't anymore, right? So probably it didn't work out that well. It probably actually wasn't a good idea. I think there were actually a bunch of interpersonal conflicts at those communes, which is why they haven't sustained themselves. And so I'm so sick of people presenting it to me being like, we really were
just
on to
got
something
it.
in the 60s. Oh, you
Yeah.
were on to something? Why are we not doing it now?
Why?
Also, half of them were cults.
Mm-hmm.
How many cults existed from 1965 to 1973?
So many. When I say interpersonal conflicts, I mean at least 50% of those were cults.
Or cults. Cults being like,
So-
oh, there's no more money.
and
And
What's infuriating is that it does not speak to the plot in any way. Nobody
No.
changes their perspective
you're
or
right,
opinion.
yeah.
It doesn't do anything for us that we have this whole drug stint, and it feels again like it happened at that time, so we have to acknowledge
I have
it.
to
But
acknowledge, yeah.
at least they got in and got out with the civil rights movement, which we can all agree was not the choice there. But they were like, we really need to like take our time with the drugs part of the 70s. Why?
The only thing I could think of was that it was everyone's like last kind of quote unquote freedom before they all had to get boring jobs and Max having to go to the military. But none of that was like said or even expressed.
Name a single character who gets a boring job in this movie, RJ.
She becomes a waitress for like that once.
She is a waitress for one scene.
She waits tables
is.
because she is spending most of her time being a political protester. I wouldn't say this
Right.
is a movie about like then they all get corporate jobs. That's
Right.
like not at all what happens.
And then it's labor.
And then it's labor.
Then it's labor, Marxism.
Marxism.
I would be more fine with this whole sequence if it was just like 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
what's weird is like so many songs in this movie, they do like the bridge and the chorus.
Yes.
And then they're like, and we are rolling along to the next
Blackbird
one.
is like a verse. Blackbird,
Yes.
one of the best Beatles songs ever. They're like, she's
Blackbird,
gonna
they
sing
literally
it
go,
quietly
Blackbird
on the,
singing in the, how are you doing?
yeah,
Like,
She's
you
like-
don't even get the whole song.
on a dock, being like thinking about blackbirds. Anyway,
Anyway, let's go. Let's run.
Meanwhile,
they were like, but need more of that walrus, baby.
you know what we need? Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite.
The song that
a
everyone
song
loves.
everyone
We would have
knows.
burned down the theater if they didn't include that
Girl,
banger in
it is
here.
the number one karaoke song. Absolutely. Everyone sings this, and I want to dance with somebody. It's the top one, top two.
A gay anthem.
Okay, anthem. Oh my god, the clurbs.
The remix.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, the one cool thing is that in the middle of the drug sequence, when they're at the ashram, we have the bread and puppet theater, giant head,
Literally-
whatever.
No,
I
that's
literally,
when
I
that's when
literally
was done.
shouted "La Mama Experimental
It-
Theater Company"
It's
all of a
cool
sudden.
if you're a theater nerd and you like
Yes.
see the influences that are happening on Julie Taymor. So it's like cool to have a moment of it, but it could have been the 3 minutes of like, hey, let's all go down this bus to go see this ashram, and then we could have seen those things and been like, whoa, colors. Anyway, we're back in New York. That's what if I got to pick 3 minutes, it would have just been the puppets part.
Yeah, but
She
already
loves her puppets, Adam. You know Julie and her puppets.
Julie loves a puppet, and
She
she doesn't
loves a
like a
puppet.
Muppet, to be clear. It's not Muppets.
It's
It
not
is
Muppets. It is
puppetry with a
It is
capital P.
puppetry, capital P. 12 feet.
I mean, like, huge. The hands. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember the puppet. Yeah, there were hands and there was a head.
I
They were
just-
very big.
Yeah.
A
So-
circus tent emerges from the head.
The
Yeah.
only thing
Yeah.
I need to say is that it obviously is an homage to Sergeant Pepper Lonely Hearts Club
Oh, yeah,
Bandwagon
yeah,
Jubilee Extravaganza.
Elegant Lala Lip Sync Lollapalooza.
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 Legendary Legends.
Another film that I have not seen and truly will never see. So, this is for the diehard. This is the Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beatles.
The Beetle
Um,
Gang.
Yeah, the Beatle Baileys.
Yeah,
shout,
right into us.
shout out
That's
to
the fandom name.
Sunday comic strips.
Oh man, it comes up surprisingly often on our podcast. Write into us if you lived through the 60s and you would be personally offended if somebody wrote a movie about the 60s and didn't include LSD in it. Because I think
Yeah.
you could. I think it's allowed.
I think actually many people didn't have the exact same experience of the 60s, which I think is
wasn't gonna guess.
wild.
Maybe at least one of them didn't even do LSD. I'm just saying.
I'm
It's
just
possible.
guessing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
We have to move on. Because I hate it, so we have to move on.
Let's talk Strawberry Fields.
Can
Yes,
I tell
'cause
you,
this is-
Can I
it's
tell
the one
you my
immediately after.
favorite? I think is this
Oh,
where
yes,
my
I didn't know
favorite?
that we hadn't hit
my,
your favorite.
My
I
favorite
thought
puppets.
I Want You.
My favorite puppets in this movie. I don't know which song it is. Do you remember after they sing "Dear Prudence" and she literally comes out of the closet?
Yeah, it's a little on the nose, y'all.
It's quite on the nose. And then they go to that like anti-war march.
Yes.
And there's like the big LBJ puppet.
Yes.
That was my favorite puppet because I was like, I like that we're like actually in the world. Like maybe somebody went so hard that they made a massive
Yes.
LBJ puppet.
Contextualize it. Yeah.
I like
this-
that. I like
Yeah. If we're doing a quick detour to favorite puppets, I think mine is the big head and arms that they do at the ashram. RJ, what's your
Mhm.
favorite puppet?
the blue people.
The blue people?
You know that Blue Man Group sequence where they're just
Yes.
next to a Blue Man Group
Yeah,
show?
it's when all of them run away from the hotel because the pageant is the next day, so they go see the Blue Man Group. Yeah, that sequence, absolutely.
I don't know what you're referencing.
That's
but yeah,
Miss
absolutely.
Congeniality.
Okay. When we get to Drag Race, you and I are on the same
On the
wavelength.
same
but all
page,
other
honey.
references are not jiving. Now, what's your favorite puppet?
Oh, the
These
blue
fucking
people.
Blue people.
They're giant blue people. It's part of the
It's
Mr.
part
Kite
of the
song.
it's behind Mr. Kite.
Oh,
They look
I
like
hated
wacky
those.
waving
Those ones
inflatable arm
reminded
flailing
me
tube men.
just a little bit
The Wiz.
of the Wiz.
That is
Because they did
that
it
is
all
the range. That is the litmus test for puppetry for Molly.
Oh
They-
yeah.
all move in unison. They
That's
move
true.
just off enough that it made me uncomfortable.
There's autonomy. There's there's
Yeah.
There's
I didn't like
individualism.
Too much consciousness.
Yeah.
Too close to sentience. Yeah.
They are so horrifying.
This is
looking.
the worst image I've ever found. I'm sending it to Molly right now.
Oh no, I'm being cyberbullied. Everyone stop them.
Where is your?
I'm trying to think of the other.
Oh, you don't
It
have
doesn't
one,
show
okay.
it on mine. I'm trying to. I think I would say the LBJ is probably my favorite too, because it was just like, okay, yes, this is. I could see this in a protest.
Are we counting the military men as puppets because of the fact that they're no, there's people in mass. That's too far to call them puppets.
Yeah, those are those feel like people to me. Molly, I
They
said
just
in
they
the chat.
feel like
feel
people.
like people.
They aren't people, but they feel like people.
Sitting in an English garden waiting for the sun. If the sun don't come, you get a tan from standing in the English rain. I am the Eggman. They are the Eggman. I am a walrus. Cuckoo-ca-choo, cuckoo-ca-choo. Cuckoo-ca-choo, cuckoo-ca-choo. Expert, choking smokers, don't you think the Joker lasts you? See how the smile like
Let's move on to Strawberry Fields, which I think is the moment of greatest tension in the plot about the apoliticality of Jude. So Jude, our artist from Liverpool, has been convinced over the course of the movie that he should pursue visual art and is trying to work and is singing Strawberry Fields while creating paintings, but also he's his part of his paintings are that he's like pinning these strawberries to these canvases. And him doing his painting is like interspersed with shots of Max fighting in Vietnam. And I know that they wanted this to be a big moment because also like the cover of Across the Universe is the two of them like kissing within the outline of a strawberry like he draws. At the end, we see he talks in the scene about how he's going to design a logo for Sadie's record company, and then we see that logo. So the strawberries are like very important. I don't know why. Do either of you understand what they were trying to say by picking Strawberry Fields as the song for this?
Is
Fields
it
of
meant?
blood?
That's what I was thinking. Like, because he was exploding the strawberries, it looked like blood.
Yeah, visually, I guess I understood that was what was happening
Molly,
visually.
Strawberries are red.
Oh, okay.
So what's going on?
Yeah.
Let me explain it for your little brain.
Interesting. Okay.
I have no idea. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I liked that it. This script is so bad. I'm so sorry. When
Adam did say he was like, "There's so much music, and the little dialogue that's in here feels like there's too much script."
somehow there was not enough book and too much script. Like I was like, and we live in a world where that's beautiful. He was like sitting in there. He was trying to like do a still life or whatever, and I go, "Oh, still life," and then Lucy walks in and she goes, "Oh, still life," and I was like, I shouldn't be able to guess the next line. Anyway, that's all. I don't know why it's strawberries. I don't know why that is the emblem of this film. I wouldn't even say like Strawberry Fields is the Beatles' best
Iconic
song or the most iconic song or the song that fans most care about.
And I went and watched the music video of Strawberry Fields to be like, so is it like clear in that song originally that it's like about Vietnam or protest or violence or something? No, they're just like hanging around in a field, having a good time. They paint a piano at one point. It seems like a lovely little outing that they have for this music video. But I don't understand why somebody was like, this is really like about the war though.
Yeah, I think it's just like we have to fix these two disparate elements together. So if we make the strawberries look like they're bleeding, maybe it'll viscerally remind the viewer that American soldiers bled once.
And more importantly, Vietnamese people.
Yeah,
we don't really see them
on that, except for
in real life, yes, you agree. But
yeah. I don't think the movie's too concerned about that, is what I'm saying.
Yes, we do end with the women in white that then fall into the water, which seems to be a reference to bodies sort of piling up in Vietnam, which feels a little crass in the same way that the Let It Be sequence does, of like just like a visual nod to like bodies, but without like really making them into real people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just carcasses.
Yeah, it's that thing of like, I understand what you're trying to get to by kind of like neutralizing it to get like the impact of they're just dead bodies, but then it's like, okay, then that's completely dehumanizing
It's
what's going on
because
in these.
they're the only other characters, quote unquote, that are like masked in
Yeah.
that way. And the only other ones are the soldiers who you're specifically not supposed to like understand, you're not supposed to relate to. So I was like, I didn't appreciate that the next time like we get masked characters, and the concept that we've given of masked characters is you don't understand them, is like the bodies of thousands of Vietnamese
Innocent.
people
Right.
who are suffering because of American imperialism. I don't know. I
And
don't
look,
know.
to be fair to Julie Taymor, this is a lot to fit into a movie. So like,
So maybe don't.
so maybe don't, maybe don't. I don't know. Could have cut the 30-minute drug sequence, but like, I do think while we're being critical of like her handling of the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, I understand that like this movie would be like a total mess if she tried to be like, now let's like really get to know some characters in Vietnam, like right, like that would be way too much. So I just want to acknowledge that it's like it's a difficult thing to make a movie, but it doesn't feel like the best choices. I also don't quite understand. Lucy and Jude's big conflict is like, is Jude doing something that's not helping the war effort at all, basically? And the war effort, I mean like ending the war, not the effort in the war. And so then we have this
He's working for what's that fucking gold?
Goldman Sachs?
No. No, there was just some. It's one of the like defense contracted companies. I don't know. What is he doing?
Raytheon?
Working for Raytheon?
Flatball?
There you go.
Yeah.
Fleetwater? That's
No, girl. Fleetwater is
no.
our little secret.
Give me one moment.
Raytheon,
No, it's not.
the military-industrial complex. Oh my god!
I just want to know what
our
it is.
drug sequences are Adam.
Lockheed Martin.
Okay, let's do that again. Take two.
Okay, take two. Adam, this is a cut. Adam, this is a cut. What does he do? Work for Lockheed Martin? You know what I mean?
Wow, that's so impressive.
Oh
You
my
just pulled that out of
God.
nothing.
Out of my butthole.
What were we
No.
talking
What
about?
are we
Oh,
talking
so what is
What was this movie?
what?
See, listeners, what you missed is the 10 minutes that I had to spend looking up Lockheed Martin.
What is Julie Taymor trying to say by putting Jude and Max together in this sequence? It feels like it is an answer to the question of, is he actually just totally apolitical and irrelevant as an artist? And it seems to be, to me, it seems to be answering the affirmative of like, actually what Jude's doing is somehow important and somehow parallel to what Max is doing. But I feel like it's not.
Yeah, because Max, there is no. Isn't Max? No.
So
isn't
there's
Jude
a
just?
few reasons why they're not the same. One is there because he's forced to be there. So Max is not, he has not chosen to fight in the Vietnam War. He has been drafted to do so. Jude has just left England to meet his dad and then just hung around America and then started painting because he doesn't do anything else or isn't good at anything else. We don't really know.
He likes painting. Lucy encourages him to do it. He's talented at it. I just want to say, like, I understand why he pursues art.
Sure. They're not the same. They're not the same. And I'll go on record and I'll say that fighting in a war and painting a picture are not the same.
How brave.
I can't believe you're taking a stance
I
on
can't
this.
believe. Oh my
Who's
god.
stronger than the Marines? Me.
Are you
An
sure?
artist.
Are you sure? Are you sure you feel comfortable saying this?
Here's what is. Here's why you're wrong about that. No.
Okay, counterpoint.
Here's what is weird about it is that he is not making art about the war. I don't think, unless we're supposed to understand he's pinning these strawberries to a canvas and then we see this film montage. So maybe they're trying to say like, and that strawberry painting is really about war. If you were like smarter and you saw it on a gallery wall, you'd be like, oh yeah, let's defund the Vietnam War. Like now I get it. But like it doesn't, his art is never explicitly textually presented as being about the war.
Yeah.
And I think
They're
that
just
if-
like expression of his skill. Like, oh, he can do this. Like this is what he
Yes.
does.
And I think if you want to make the point of artists can be integral to political movements and can be contributing to an anti-war movement through their art. Absolutely. The guy who made the LBJ puppet was contributing, right?
Yeah.
But like Jude is just like pinning strawberries to a canvas, and it looks really cool, but it is to me too abstracted, and then it's never used
again.
protest,
Yeah.
right? If then he brought that to a protest and it like somehow mattered, or he was doing something even just to like share that art, like if your point is like the art can be important to political movements, it has to get shared past his apartment for that to be meaningful in any way. And so that's what I found frustrating, is that I think maybe what the movie wanted to say was like artists are also doing something important, because I'm sure that all the people who made this movie like are pretty sympathetic to the artistic point of view, or don't parallel them and say actually being apolitical and just caring about aesthetics is worthwhile. Isn't it awful that this thing is happening in the world, and isn't it great that some pure thing that's just about aesthetics can continue to exist even while awful things happen in the world? I could also get on board with that being the message, but in that case, don't have such a close parallel between the two in this way.
No. Sorry, I was answering his question. I was not saying that to you. He asked me, should we play Strawberry Fields Forever? And I said no. And then I was going to respond. No.
That's the clip.
You're fucking wrong.
No, Molly.
No.
No.
All of that? No.
No.
And in response, I just, no.
I don't think I'm smart enough to engage with truly anything you just said. I'm genuinely serious when I say that. I would like to bring up something that I realized while you were talking, though. Does it feel like maybe this movie has... that it's hard to do... I don't know if this is right. This movie is like a fictional thing, using like ubiquitous pop culture, but set in an actual historical setting. So is there some kind of like cognitive dissonance? Like in my mind, he makes these like strawberry paintings. Someone at this time would come along and be like, wow, just like the Beatles song, Strawberry Fields Forever. So it's weird. It's like weird to me. There is something about like, because it actually exists in the world in which Vietnam happened in America, or well, to America, by America,
From America,
of America. So maybe there's like a little bit of like cognitive dissonance in that way, where like my brain is trying to understand how this actually fits in a historical precedented world, but also like it's not just that it like takes place in the 70s. It like also has like specific, like the Detroit riots happened in this film. So it's not like it's just like an abstracted 70s thing. Like it like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
just looking up the years of the Vietnam War and then when Strawberry Fields Forever was released to see if they would have been at exactly at the same time. Strawberry Fields was 1967. Vietnam War ran until 75. So yeah, for sure. I don't know that it would have been so popular that anything that had strawberries in it, everyone would be like the Beatles
Just
song?
like the Beatles song.
So maybe it's not that, but it is an interesting point that it's interesting how like Sadie and JoJo have like really clear real world analogs, but then like do the Beatles also exist and they are singing songs of the right? It can very quickly, when you start to ask yourself those questions, it is what I now think of as the morning show problem, which is that Apple TV show with Jennifer
With
Aniston
Reese,
and Steve Carell. And then I watch it and they'll like reference real world events and I'll be like, so Trump got elected, but Friends and The Office never existed because Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell are not people in this universe, right?
Yeah.
So like, that's so wild. So I feel like, I don't think that that's why I'm struggling with it, but it's a good point about historical fiction and how as soon as you start to ask like a couple questions, it can be really difficult. Yeah.
No, I have no answer for your questions. Sorry. RJ?
No, I don't either, but I think it definitely is a thorn in just what they're trying to like express in this whole movie, because it's like it is like threading that needle of like, oh, this looks like it's trying to say something very important because because why else would you give such lavish visual storytelling in what you're saying?
And you can't really make, I mean, with our, at this point, cultural understanding of the Vietnam War, and you want Jude to be like a sympathetic romantic lead, you can't make him literally apolitical and be like, Vietnam War doesn't matter. Like, then he's like a bad guy. Because at this point, our understanding is like, you should have been at some point in like a negative, like an anti-war sentiment. But like, they didn't really make a choice. I think it's just that they didn't make a choice about what it is. So like, we're left to fend for ourselves as to what the choice may be. And sometimes that can be really exciting when you get to make the choice as an audience member, because it gives you many opportunities to like think and whatever. But I think it's stronger if like there was a choice, but it's like purposefully hidden from view. It just doesn't feel like there was a choice made in general.
Yeah.
I think, RJ, I think you totally hit on something important with the visuals make it feel important. And I think to all of this discussion about like the world of theater, I think we may be cresting past this like super visual type of theater, right? And so now it feels like we can be a little bit retrospective about it and its impact. And I think what is really obvious in the Let It Be sequence, and then is like a little bit more subtle in all the stuff about Vietnam, is how the visuals make you feel like, oh, they're saying something about it. But then when you think about it more, you realize that they kind of just tricked you into feeling like there was something about it. But it's just that like you just looked at a lot of stuff related to that topic, but there wasn't actually a perspective. And I feel like in 2007, that made more sense because we were in this like, are we in a post-historical realm of, okay, stuff like protests and wars and whatever, like that already happened. And like, we're all good now, basically. And now you watch it as people who've been to protests recently, and you feel like, well, like, what do you want to say about Vietnam? You have that frustration because I mean, I remember watching this and being like, oh yeah, people going to protest. Like, what is that? That's not, like, not feeling like that was a thing that would ever be relevant to my own life, right?
Yeah, totally.
But also this, I mean, this feels like she was like, the creative team that created this, was like, there's also a parallel to be drawn with us in this war in Afghanistan, war on terror, and the Iraq war, which we were still in at the time. Because this is obviously 2007, George Bush is still president. And everyone is like, at the very least, we're over the war in Iraq. That's kind of already on the decline by 2007. So I don't know if that's part of it too, where they were trying to like purposely make a statement about war.
I'm sure that they were, and I'm obviously being hyperbolic when I say things like wars were past, but definitely during
we live in a post-war, post-racial,
post-COVID. Exactly. Definitely in the like height of the Iraq war and the war in Afghanistan, they felt like very far away issues, and you had to be like kind of a political nerd almost to like know and care about them, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now protests are like very present, very frequent. It's a very different relationship to the idea of protest. So it's not that I like had never seen a protest happening or whatever, but they felt like very niche things and very different from how the 60s have been recounted to me of like, everyone's out there in the streets. Everyone cares about this thing that like Vietnam got everyone of that generation involved in it in some way. And that was not something that I sort of anticipated would feel like something I would live through. I thought it would be like, yeah, we like those like really involved in politics people, the like hardcore liberals. Yeah, they're out there protesting, but that's like not really an everyone thing.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going strawberry field. Nothing is real, and nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. Living is easy with eyes closed. Misunderstood.
everybody that all you need is just love.
Yeah, I don't even feel like we need to go into Sadie and JoJo because it doesn't matter.
It's just a story about fame, I feel like, which is I find boring usually.
Yeah. And then, yeah, he goes back to Liverpool.
He comes back when he sees a headline in the newspaper that
We
like
haven't really talked about Paco, but
anti-war protests like exploded like a bomb, which I mean you talked about it in your summary, and that kind of like brings him back.
no, I didn't. I read you the summary, the Wikipedia summary earlier today.
Oh.
That's when I said it.
Oh, right. I mean the only thing I would want to bring up
we
is
hadn't actually mentioned also that he was deported. He gets deported and then he eventually decides to come back to the US. So yeah, Jude does all this.
Jude. The only thing that I would bring up
Jude.
too is like Max. There was a number called Shoot. It's the Salma Hayek one. Happiness is a Warm Gun,
Happiness is one
where Max is back and in a number much like
Oh, I also like this number.
in much like I Want You is that it's now like all the soldiers back in like a hospital with like nurses, and it also has kind of like the same like movement.
And they're getting like morphine.
And they're getting morphine to kind of like get them through the basically like blitz their brains to kind of like get through the trauma that they experienced in war.
I felt like in this number I was like, oh, I'm remembering how I Want You was a better version of this.
Yeah.
So I
Yes, for
didn't
sure.
love it, but it was very cool. There's an Orthodox, Russian Orthodox priest in it that does all this dancing in this like
Yes.
really long robe.
And it, like,
that was
cycles
super
around.
Whirling
cool.
dervish.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So that was very cool and very theatrical. I could imagine it happening on a stage type of
Mhm.
moment.
Yeah.
And then like Salma Hayek was the same nurse but multiple times like giving everyone the blue morphine shot.
This is a Willy Wonka Oompa Loompas in the Johnny Depp version
Mhm.
situation.
yeah. So that was that, and then that kind of like
a movie that I also think came out in 2007.
Let's check.
It
RJ,
might be.
finish
It
your
might
thought.
be like 04.
I was just gonna say that kind of like completes Max's story. After that, he just kind of becomes a sanitized version of himself, like not really finding the same 05.
I know. I was waiting for RJ to finish his thought because I'm not rude.
Not finding like the same, like warmth and happiness and excitement anymore as he did before the war. So
Yeah, it's important to know, I think, but I feel like this especially is where I get to the like, let's just do like the 30-second version for all.
yes,
all this
exactly.
Right? We'll put a hat
And,
on it.
like-
Yep, done.
And it kind of honestly just serves as a purpose for Lucy to be like, and this further makes me a staunch anti-war protest, because then she does, like go into a protest, like, and like gets pulled by the cops and stuff, like, because it's like, look at what they did to Max. Like, this is why I have to fight for this kind of situation.
Yep. So Jude gets deported, and then he comes back when he thinks that maybe Lucy got injured in this pipe
This
bomb explosion. And then I will say that the Hey Jude, the way that then they play that song as he's coming back, and then when Max sees him, he does the Jude, and I was like,
Yes,
that was a
that's
really
cute.
good
I wanted
use
more of that.
a part of the song into the plot, and like it made sense in the moment of the scene.
Yeah.
I think that's like the only time, honestly, that it's like a
Yes.
lyric makes diegetic sense in the scene.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then we go to Sadie's new spot for her record company, where she and JoJo are playing on the roof, an homage to the famous Beatles roof concert.
Their last concert.
Oh, forgot about that part of it.
Mhm.
And
In London.
they are playing some song. I don't remember what. Lucy gets invited. The cops come because the man is bad and breaks up the concert. And as they're all leaving, then Jude sneaks over to the microphone and he starts to sing All You Need Is Love. And I think this scene is really cute and I really like it.
Oh. Good.
No.
Friedrich also
No.
thinks it's cute. He's squeaking in
Friedrich
affirmation.
is on my side. I think that the ending of this, he sings All You Need Is Love. Lucy can't get up to the roof to meet him because the cops are blocking her. And then she runs up to the roof of the building
Other
next
building,
door. And we end with them looking at each other and we know that they're in love. And he sings, she loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then we see her with the sky behind her. Smash cut to credits, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. It's a great ending.
I do think that the song All You Need Is Love did get ruined for me around this time, because it was like Singular, or T-Mobile, Sprint, one of them kept using this.
Centennial Wireless.
One of them used this as their commercial, and it was like all I heard. So like even when I was watching this, I was like, this kind of looks like a commercial. Like, do you remember the old Coke commercial? I like to teach the world to sing. Like it gave very that vibe that I'm like,
It's very bold of this movie, which is clearly using Moulin Rouge, if at least in part, as inspiration for what it's doing, to use the exact same song because All You Need Is Love happens in the
Elephant Love medley.
Love medley, and it's I think it's way better in Moulin Rouge, a movie I, again, don't like.
They're using songs in a very different way in Moulin Rouge, though, to be fair. In
Moulin Rouge is aware of the concept of fun as well, which like half of this movie is not.
Interesting that you bring up Moulin Rouge, because in the interview I read of the retrospective in 2018, she talks about the fact that the actors sang live on set for this movie. And then she talks about how they also did that in Moulin Rouge, and she says that people say that she got it from Baz Luhrmann, but in fact Baz learned it from her. And I was like, get it, girl.
Get it, girl.
Gaslight,
give girl boss.
Girl boss. And I thought that was interesting when you said maybe she should have directed Cats, because I guess I stand corrected that I guess a lot of people have done this singing live situation, and it doesn't have to ruin the movie.
Well, yeah, because they still make them sing on tempo. Like, they don't just get to, like,
that's
acapella and do
Yeah.
whatever they want and be like, well, I guess we'll match an orchestra to you. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's an effective ending. I think, like, it's definitely, like, a return back to the optimism after, you know, the slog that we just went through of the war.
Go back to some of the 60s good Beatles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Get back to that. Get into that vibe into the 70s, you know.
I mean, I have said that I don't think these characters have chemistry, so I couldn't have cared less that they, like, looked at each other from across the room, across the street.
Across the universe.
Across the universe.
Adam likes it now. Now it all makes sense.
But, I mean, I guess I liked, that it ended kind of positive and that the loose ends were tied up, so it did what storytelling is supposed to do. So I guess congrats for that. I genuinely, like, I'm not mad at this movie. It's just, I truly, like, it's not for me. And that's okay.
It doesn't seem like you're not mad at the movie, Adam. It seems like
not.
you're mad.
I'm not mad.
Explain
Do
why
I
you're
look
mad.
mad?
Do I look mad?
Yes.
Extremely.
Extremely.
Visual podcast.
No, but totally fair that the final scene relies on you rooting for Jude and Lucy, and if you don't care, then there's nothing to be done about it, because that's what it's all about.
All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. 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 Love is all you is all you need. All you need is love, love. Love is all you
So, Molly's contemporaries, critics, in other words, what are they saying about this movie? So there's a 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is a splat rating. This is from Bob Mondello of NPR, one of my absolute favorites. He says, the imagery is pretty astonishing. Taymor treats some of the more fantastical moments as if she were making big screen music videos, and it's all very intelligently done. But it's kind of a silly idea, very intelligently done. The anti-war stuff gives Across the Universe some contemporary overtones, but it's still basically Hair with better music. And it's not as if Beatles songs weren't already being peppered, as it were, into the soundtracks of other movies set in the 60s. Precisely because we've all got our own reference points for them. Taymor can't short-circuit that, and she can't really tell us anything we don't already know about the 60s or about the songs. Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly says, watching Across the Universe, it's almost fun to pick out which use of the Beatles makes you gag the most. Taylor Swift serves up the songs in sludgy marzipan renditions, cramming them into her god-awful shopping mall rehash of the late 60s. There's With a Little Help from My Friends turned into a frat house ditty, Helter Skelter slathered across counterculture riot footage in the style of a bad TV movie, and songs like If I Fell pasted onto romances that haven't been remotely dramatized. The story is all protests, rainbow crash pads, and solarized acid trips. A hairy cliche fest, all reflected through the tale of a guy named Jude and a girl named Lucy. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry. I did like the underwater kissing to Because, plus Bono doing I Am the Walrus. He has presence more than you can say for anyone else. But the thing about the Beatles is their songs already are movies. They hardly needed to be fixing the whole of this one. And finally,
I don't know what he means about the Beatles songs already being moved. They're not known for being particularly like story-driven or cinematic, but okay.
Tasha Robinson of the AV Club says, ultimately, Universe's saving grace is its reckless energy and Taymor's typically gorgeous imagery, whether she's filming a straight-up dance sequence to With a Little Help from My Friends or a trippy surrealist nightmare in which the army processes Anderson to I Want You. The film wavers between exhilarating and gimmicky, and the cast interpretations of the Beatles' catalog vary between passionate and rote, but Across the Universe is consistent in one aspect, its crazed ambition. When it falls far, but at least that means it's reaching high.
That's a great note to end that on.
It was pretty mixed. The critic reviews were pretty mixed. The New York Times, though, I will say, New York Times gave a very glowing review from a man who was very clearly like a Beatles stan. So he was like, honestly, work. And then Roger Ebert, like, there's no higher movie he ever rated. Like, he loved this film. So there you go. He's of the time. Josh Lewis gave it 2 stars. Oh, but on Letterboxd, what are the people saying? Josh Lewis gave it 2 stars and said, certainly the most artfully photographed episode of Glee.
Amazing.
Truman gave it 5 stars and said, imagine if Julie Taymor did Wonder Woman, which is not a comment on this film, but great.
But unfortunately would mean that we would have to include Imagine because Gal Gadot would have insisted on it.
Oh my God, Gal Gadot.
And Laura gave it 3 stars and said, developed a new appreciation for this as an adult because now I know I can just sing along to the songs I want to hear and skip past all the boring parts.
Yeah. You know, YouTube exists. Just YouTube the songs.
This is a perfect movie for YouTube.
Yes. Someone please upload it to YouTube without the drug stuff in it. The closer for this week, despite the fact that we've already established that none of us are huge Beatles fans, but I'm pretty sure we've already done pick a pop star or group and like make a jukebox musical out of it. So I'm going to do the reverse. Pick a Beatles song that's not in this movie that you think should have been included and pitch your visual concept. And I think we don't have to stick to the plot of the movie. This is just like, we're being given the prompt of like, it's across the universe. We're putting it to film, whatever. What Beatles song was not in this that you think would be cool to Julie Taymor?
But what if I don't know other Beatles songs? Wait, I have to look.
Why don't you look up a list of the most popular? I will start us off since I wrote it and actually thought about my own question for once this time, which is that my favorite Beatles song is Eleanor Rigby, and I feel like it would be really cool to see a Julie Taymor
Show Me
video.
Eleanor.
It's basically just Julie Taymor music video for Eleanor Rigby. I would really like.
I feel like my favorite.
Can't believe there's a character not named Eleanor in this movie. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Most of my favorite Beatles songs are like not really like big flashy. I mean, yeah, not a lot of songs are big and flashy, but I like In My Life. In my life, I loved you more. Like that would be a nice like little, like admission of love type ballad. But also Yesterday, I also really like Yesterday. So I would pick kind of those as like a Blackbird type of number where it can just be like a more of like the honest, genuine, or like the I Want to Hold Your Hand, like a more honest, genuine. Because Yesterday could be a fun like thinking back, like maybe Max after the war he's back, and in that scene where she's seeing him in the hospital, like whatever, maybe he could sing Yesterday, to kind of reminisce what it used to be, and then it's like very visually but like sad number.
So yesterday, yesterday.
Haven't you heard that I'm gonna be okay? Yeah, I think Coming Clean, the song that they wrote, Coming Clean, that they famously wrote for Hilary Duff.
This is what dreams are made of.
I think like that would be a really cool Julie Taymor. I think Julie Taymor redoing the Lizzie McGuire movie would be an
Oh my god, I genuinely want that.
I will sign the checks.
I won't. I don't have
Paolo
the money,
is
but
a puppet.
please.
Yeah,
yes,
Paolo's
Paolo is a puppet. Yes, absolutely. The entire Coliseum is just men with prosthetics on their faces just stacked on top of each other.
So I had to look at the Rolling Stones list of 100 greatest Beatles songs of all time. And I'm choosing number 15 because A, it's a song that I recognize, and B, it's not in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It is Help. Help. And honestly, it's kind of, you don't know Help? Help. It's really good.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
It's kind of surprising that it's not in the movie because there are many characters who are
Need
metaphorically
help.
Crying out. You know what I mean? It probably is best that they didn't put like a sequence in which Max is like in Vietnam crying out for help, because it would have been
probably important.
I feel like they also didn't use a lot of the like really poppy early songs, and Help is like a very poppy,
super poppy.
Yeah.
But I would put it in my version.
And what would be your visual?
My visual treatment? It would be in Vietnam, but it would be the local Vietnamese people who are singing Help.
I feel like that's in poor taste, but we'll try to find a way to make it a good taste.
It's fine. It's 2007.
But in the context of this movie, it's in the same taste as everything else, so it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Same palette. Same palette.
Same palettes.
Well,
the funny part about this whole thing was that Adam wanted just to be a 45-minute episode.
I really wanted this to be an hour
and this is our recording is currently hitting 2 hours 45
No, we've
minutes.
just been on the call for
No, I know, but I'm just saying you wanted this to be one and like quick.
We certainly have not. We've not kept it to 45 minutes. I think we can confidently say that, and our listeners are. They laughed at that comment.
They
when
laughed
they saw
at
it
it
at the beginning, and they saw the scrub.
Because our listeners follow the inside jokes at this time. Like they know.
They do. It's true.
Yeah. Well,
I don't remember which song you said you were going out on.
Hey, Jude.
Oh.
Don't be afraid. Take a side and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start. I'm waiting for you to stop the recording to make it.
Is Jude a nickname for Judas?
Judah.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
In 1879, a musical comedy about love and honor. was produced in Victorian England. It was a bit daring, a trifle naughty, and a smashing success. 100 years later, that same musical comedy opened in a park in New York. But it took some liberties with the music, played havoc with the action,
Go, ye heroes, go to glory.
and went crazy with the cast.
Glory.
It was a bit shocking, totally unexpected, and an overwhelming hit. Now, in the spirit of taking liberties, poking fun, and playing havoc, the musical comedy from 1879 and the cast from 1979 joined forces to continue the tradition of breaking tradition.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.